Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 7th meeting of the Town of Richmond Select Board. I would like to start the meeting by thanking all the volunteers and townspeople who made the July 4th events possible. I'm on the Parade and Fireworks Committee, and so there's a core of 8 people who met twice monthly for quite a while to make sure all this came together. But it requires a lot more than those 8 volunteers. We had 8 day of volunteers who helped out in various ways. And of course, we had all the people who organized and put together the floats, the vendors themselves, the people who assisted in things like the children's activities. And I particularly want to thank those people who put together the herstory walking float, the Great Women in History. I thought that was a tremendous float, as it were. I was standing at the intersection of Bridge Street and Main Street as that float went by with a number of, I'd say, middle school to maybe 9th grade girls, and they said, I don't know who any of those names are. And I looked at them and said, then you should probably look them up. So I'm hoping we can have some follow-up with the people who put that float together to, maybe make some resources available so that their names aren't just a passing thing in the parade. But once again, my thanks to everybody, including our own Mr. Vander here, who is the person who every year lets us borrow his cars and his golf carts. If you need a golf cart, he's your man. So thank you all. Thank you everybody who's here and who is not here for making a great 4th.
A lot of things worked well this year. This was the first year that the first 3 golf carts I dropped off ran the whole time.
But one of them leaked gas like crazy.
It did, but it made it all the way through the event. Again, like Jay alluded to, this isn't possible without a lot of hard work from very few volunteers. We were very fortunate. The parade and the festivities and the fireworks all happened at a beautiful break in the weather. The day before or the day after, it would have been a lot worse. It was a great time for the whole town to put things aside and have a good time, which looks like they did. My informal observation is it looked like attendance was down a little bit this year, but that might just be me. And one silly nagging observation, thought, concern I had is, do we have anybody monitoring for when Amtrak comes through?
We asked them to put a slow order down and they ignored it.
Yeah, because I was thinking as we were getting close to the 10:30 departure time that it almost connects with Amtrak's trip through town at 59 miles an hour. And oh my God, what would happen if the parade was stalled on the tracks?
Right. No, we asked them not to do that, and they were 40 minutes behind schedule. So they just came right on through without paying any attention to it. So we're very lucky.
Not that you're short for volunteers and things to do, but if there were somebody just checking to see if the train had already gone through and reporting that might be a good
No,
thing.
I think that's a very good suggestion. It's something that no one thinks of until it happens, and we were lucky that no one did get clobbered. Okay, other public comment. Mary, come on up.
Hi there. Very cool. I have if you take one and pass the rest down, I have a copy of the conservation rules and regulations. At the last meeting, you folks was reported in the Times Inc. that $30,170 was approved for the land trust to do something over there on Cochran Road. If you'll, I've kind of marked up this criteria for the use of the fund. Nowhere does it say thou shalt use it for what it is, what it was requested for. As it exists now, it doesn't match general criteria A on page 2. $30,000 is a gift. It's a gift. So does this change? This is a gift to change something. This says preserve in the rules and regulations. It preserve what is here. It doesn't say take something out and put something in. So I would ask you please to take a look at what is set forth in these rules and regulations, and that the criteria just doesn't match the request that they put forward. There is no evidence for what it, it's just, I wish I had a parking lot. So you can see the things that don't apply. Something hasn't been damaged already. Things that don't apply. So please take a look at that. I would appreciate it if you would. Again, I was alerted to it by the note in the Times Inc. Thank you.
Mary? Denise?
Good evening, Denise Barnard. a member of the Three Parks Committee.
He was wearing a jacket in 85-degree heat.
I know, and I'm leaving.
Okay.
So things have happened pretty quickly the last 10 days, and when we came to you 2 years ago, you said that you like to be updated occasionally. So 3 to 5 minutes, of your time, please. I just want to update you about what's going on. So on Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock, I got a phone call from Vermont Recreation. If you remember correctly, they're the company that won the bid to build the pickleball courts. Michelle from the office called me and she said, Denise, are you all staked out? And I said, no. And she says, well, if you can be staked out tomorrow, we'll be there at 8 a.m. I said, we'll be staked out, which I show up at 8. His entire crew is there. And I've got 100-foot tape and Fran's coming, but I just have to say it worked out. And I just want to give a shout out because we're all quick to criticize.
That's not
But-
true.
We are all quick to criticize. And when they got there, the gentleman, Steve, who owns Vermont Recreation, had some questions. I mean, I just want to tell you, I called Josh, I called Keith Oborn, I called Steve Cody, Jerry Levesque, interim fire chief, Fran and I, they all came up immediately. And there were sewer questions, there were water questions, there were, how do we get water? Because the piece that Steve Cody ordered is back ordered. The fire department went up with a hose, we tied into the hydrant. Every single person up there were rock stars, they were heroes, and they answered, Josh, okay, Josh, give me again the measurements from home plate I just want to make sure everything's going okay. I'm gonna pass these around. This is day one, it looks already different, 3 days in, it looks totally different. But, and everyone in this town should be so proud of how our town came together, and I have to tell you, the owner of the company was so impressed. I mean, he was meeting everybody, shaking everybody's hand, and he goes, well, what about the water? And then, Steve would pick up and say, this is my job, this is my area. So I just want to thank, and I think that you guys as select board need to know how quick they were to respond, how everything got done that morning. I've been up every day, as Fran has as well. The job is running ahead of schedule. He said, it is incredible. He goes, everything's working so smoothly. When we needed water, the first day they didn't even have to tie into the fire hydrant because the skies opened up and it was more water than they needed. So everything on that aspect is going great. If you remember, I was here a month and a half ago asking for permission to apply for a grant for money for the pickleball courts. I'm back today asking for a second permission because now US Pickleball Association has put out Grow the Game Grant. They are giving away many packages. They include 24 wooden paddles, 100 pickleballs, and a portable net. The grant application opens today, July 8th, and closes on August 5th. And we've already been in touch with the library. If we were to win one of these wonderful grants, the library has willingly accepted to be the responsible party for the equipment and to lend it out like we do our snowshoes, if you guys are familiar with that program. So my first question is, would you be willing to just approve us to apply for the grants? We're not possibly getting it, but we're gonna try to do everything we can. And the third and final thing is why I'm here is we are going to the Conservation Committee tomorrow night. We are going to ask that they fund us 60 arborvitae trees for the 3 sides of the pickleball court. If you remember correctly, the DRB application, the courts are going to be done way sooner than we thought. We didn't expect them till mid-August, late August, but because they had a break in their schedule, and I said, come ahead, we'll have it marked out, so they came ahead and they helped us mark. They marked it out themselves, which was amazing. But because we're running so far ahead, and when they're done, we can't officially play on these courts until the trees are up. That's one of the requirements of the DRB permit. So the arborvitae trees have to be planted. VYCC and local volunteers have agreed to plant all of the trees. We're getting the trees from Gardener's Supply. So we're a little nervous. So we'd like to get them ordered before anything happens when the new company comes in, will they still honor the former quote? We got a great price thanks to Fran Thomas. Knocking on many, many people's doors. So we're gonna, with your permission, go to,
We can't just raise your hands and say it would need to be on the actual agenda.
okay, right,
We
right.
can put on next week's agenda.
No, it's a preliminary thing for
Yeah.
tomorrow night. I just wanted to give you a heads up and update you because we promised you 2 years ago, we would keep you updated.
Okay.
So I highly recommend that you go by, take a peek at what's going on. It's amazing. They're doing a fantastic job. It might cost Fran and I some ice cream and some pizzas, but that's okay. We'll cover it.
Okay, any quick questions for Denise? Okay, since this is still public comment, but I just wanted to ask one question. Is it possible that, since we're talking about renting pickleball equipment and we already do rent snowshoes, can we combine the two?
Yeah. Same time, pickle shoes.
Yeah, we'll play pickleball in the snow. Okay, thank you very
So
much.
I don't know. I know it wasn't on the agenda, so do I need to?
So the
Sure.
grant's not,
Weeks.
grant's not due till August. I'll put it
It's
on,
not due till
I'll
August.
put it on the next agenda. I'd imagine you can start working on the grant application because they'll probably say yes, but we'll,
It's done, but we'll wait to submit it
so
until you approve.
we'll put it on the agenda for the 21st as well as the conservation fund request, assuming conservation commission votes on it prior to that.
Perfect.
Nice.
Sounds great.
And Justin Bart,
Gee, just an observation. In Canada, they actually play lacrosse on skates. There's winter lacrosse on
I'd like to
skates.
see that.
Of course it is.
Oh, hockey,
It's like hockey, but
but it's lacrosse.
they have a lacrosse
All
stick.
right, I'm looking forward to the videos.
Okay,
And
You could look it
thanks
up.
again for coming up and answering those questions.
Well, thanks for everything you guys are doing for me. I appreciate it.
okay. Any further public comment from anybody? We have a hand up. Kara, go ahead.
Kara, if you're talking, you're muted.
I
There you
haven't
go.
I haven't started talking yet. I was just putting my headset on so that you could hear me clearly in the microphone. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Beautiful. I'm actually here because I serve on the town center building committee and we haven't had a meeting in a few months. And it's because we are waiting for, I know Adam Wood has stepped away for a bit and taking a hiatus from the committee. But I'm asking if a select board member might be able to volunteer to be on that committee. We are waiting for the town staff and the select board to go through the RFP process for two different, one is an owner's project manager and the other is a building maintenance manager for two separate RFPs. So our committee is not going to meet until such time that we are able to review RFPs because we are at a standstill. So I would just ask that the select board either work with staff to get the RFPs out and approve to have an RFP or whatever process you all have to go through for that. But we are at a standstill and we would love to also have an update on where things stand for the RFP that went out or if there was one for the replacement of the doors downstairs. And I think the security system and locking system is on hold until those doors are replaced. So if we could get any kind of update on any of the status of those, we could hold another meeting. But right now, all meetings are on hold.
I think it's my understanding that all the RFP stuff should be ready to go.
Is it?
That's not where I thought we left it.
Okay,
I have
I
stepped back.
thought we were waiting to hear back from you guys on RFP so we could review and
It
put it
wasn't
in.
my understanding of it.
Well, let's talk and figure it out then.
Okay,
Could
I can
that
do
be an
that. I
agenda
can-
item next?
yeah, I'm thinking that could be an
I
agenda.
should
item.
close loop with Josh about that in the short term, Kara, and then we can figure the rest of that out at the next meeting, our next meeting, I guess, this meeting.
Can you repeat, Adam, what you just said? Because you broke up a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
can close the loop on which specific pieces, I guess Josh and Duncan have and don't have, and how that.
Thank you.
It over.
And just if you all could think about it, if Adam is taking a hiatus for a little bit, if any other select board member was available to participate on the committee, that would be great. Thank you.
I don't know why, but everybody started looking at Caitlin, who did not do anything to encourage it. Okay,
That could be an agenda item next time, Tim.
yeah. Okay, seeing no other agenda, no other public comment, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Seeing none. Our first item on the agenda is one I kind of jumped the gun on because I was so happy about the way the 4th went. But thank you again to everybody who made the July 4th festivities possible and all the hard work that went into it. Our second item on the agenda is consideration of making an appointment to the Andrews Community Forest Committee. We do have a candidate, Mr. Wolfson, you're here?
Please speak up. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me.
No, please speak up.
I will be happy to. Our next item on the agenda is we have a candidate for an appointment to the Andrews Community Forest Committee. Dan Wolfson has applied to be appointed and he is on the Zoom.
I'm actually here in the room.
No, you're not.
Zoom.
That's my name.
Okay. Would you like to come up and tell us about yourself?
Sure.
So you can be in 2 places at once.
Hi, Dan Wilson, Richmond resident. I've been following the Andrews Community Forest for about 3 years now. I think it's a pretty exciting time. They're doing a lot of great work and I've been going to most of the meetings anyway, so I thought I would like to jump in and try to help out. Years ago, I worked in conservation. I worked for an organization in central Vermont protecting land through forest legacy funds and conservation easements. So have a little bit of experience with it and like to try to help out.
Okay. I would also like to note that Mr. Wolfson was unanimously recommended by the members of the ACFC committee. I think that's redundant. ACF committee. Are there any questions, members of the select board for Mr. Wolfson? Any questions or comments from the audience, Mary?
Hi, Mary Gould. Dr. Wolfson was one of the founding members of the Richmond Tree Committee, and I wholeheartedly applaud him for applying to be on the Andrews Forest Committee, and I make a recommendation to appoint Dr. Wolfson. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
You've attended a bunch of the meetings, so you're aware of the subject matter and what they're working on. So you know what you're getting into too. There's no surprises. That seems like a win.
No surprises.
Are we ready for a motion?
Jay, this is Bart. I'd like to move to appoint Dan Wolfson to an at-large seat on the Andrews Community Forest Committee to fill a vacancy with a term ending in 2028.
Jay,
Adam, a second.
They're jumping all over each other to second. Okay, we have a motion from Bart Hill, seconded by Adam Wood, to appoint Dan Wolfson to an at-large seat on the Andrews Community Forest Committee to fill a vacancy with a term ending in 2028. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Congratulations. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Continuing down the appointing road, it's that time of the year when we appoint the at-large members to the Water and Sewer Commission, the most exciting sub-branch of the Richmond town government. Select board members Bart Hill, David Sander, and myself are the select board representatives. And for the last couple of years, we have been honored by having Morgan Wolover serve as chair and Aaron Farr serving as vice chair. They have both applied to be reappointed. And at the meeting tonight of the Water and Sewer Committee, the Water and Sewer Commission voted to recommend them to the select board as suitable candidates. Are there any questions or comments from members of the select board? Anybody in the audience? Okay, are we ready for a motion? Or 2 motions?
Jay, this is Bart. I'd like to move to appoint Morgan Wolover to the Water and Sewer Commission.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Bart Hill, seconded by David Sander to appoint Morgan Wolover to the Water and Sewer Commission. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye.
Jay, this is Bart again. I'd like to move to appoint Aaron Farr to the Water and Sewer Commission.
It's Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Bart Hill, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to appoint Aaron Farr to the Water and Sewer Commission. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, Morgan and Aaron, wherever you are, congratulations.
Thank you.
There you are. Okay, our next,
You got one quick.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is something that is more making us aware of something as it is approving it. The,
Do we need to appoint the
Yeah,
selectboard members?
we need to appoint the
Yeah, we have another
oh,
motion.
you're right, we do. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of things.
Can we do all three at the same time, since three of us can't vote on that if we do that? How does that?
No, you're right. Go ahead and whoever wants to make the motion.
Can we make a motion for all three?
I don't see why not. It's listed that way.
Okay, I move to appoint select board members Bard Hill, Jay Fur, and David Sander to the Water and Sewer Commission.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Yay. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye. My apologies for getting ahead of myself.
No worries.
The next item on our agenda is, as I was starting to say, more of a making us aware of something as it is instead of us approving it. It has to do with Richmond Rescue giving pain medication as part of a clinical trial to people who cannot, in many cases, consent. Alex, would you like to come up and tell us about this? And anybody else, Dr. Wolfson, are you part of that?
I'm advancing the slides for Alex.
Okay.
Together, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Alex Dowman. I'm a paramedic and the president of Richmond Rescue and a research coordinator with UVM's Research and Emergency Medicine Department. And I'm joined by Dr. Dan Wolfson, Richmond resident, the medical director of Richmond Rescue, and the statewide EMS director. So we're here today to talk about a new research study that's coming to the Chittenden County area. And it will involve Richmond Rescue and the mutual aid agencies surrounding Richmond. The study is called PAIN, which stands for Prehospital Analgesia Intervention, and is comparing two medications that paramedics already use to treat pain, ketamine and fentanyl, to see if one of these two medications is better than the other for treating pain from traumatic injuries. So treating pain is an essential part of EMS care. It's often not possible to transfer someone to an ambulance or provide life-saving interventions without some form of pain medication. And studies have repeatedly shown that treating pain improves outcomes and reduces rates of PTSD. Right now, if someone were in severe pain from a traumatic injury, for example, from a car accident, paramedics have two main choices for treating that pain, ketamine and fentanyl. So both medications have advantages and drawbacks. Paramedics are aware of all these factors and do their best to balance patient safety with effective pain control. But we're hindered in our ability to do that because we have no concrete evidence comparing the two medications in terms of safety and quality of pain control. So currently the choice to give fentanyl or ketamine for pain is left to the paramedic to make. And that decision is based almost entirely on the individual provider's anecdotal beliefs and experiences. So with the pain study, when a patient is in severe pain from a traumatic injury and is in compensated shock, instead of having the paramedic select either ketamine or fentanyl to treat the patient's pain, they will use a blinded study medication that contains either one of these two medications. So neither the paramedic nor the patient will know which of the two medications the study drug kit contains, though the paramedic can unblind the kit and learn what was administered if needed. And the study drug is formulated to deliver the appropriate amount of either ketamine or fentanyl based on a patient's weight, which is in line with the current Vermont EMS protocols. So as they would with the standard EMS protocols, the paramedic will tell their patient what they're administering. So in this case, saying they are giving a medication that is either fentanyl or ketamine. And if a patient had an objection to either medication or voiced any opposition to being in a research study, they would not be enrolled and would be given the standard pain medication, which is either ketamine or fentanyl. And the reason we're here today talking with you about this research study is because normally for a research study, before a patient is enrolled, there has to be an in-depth informed consent conversation where risks and benefits are explained and people can have time to decide whether or not they want to participate. Unfortunately, that is not possible in this case because the study involves patients in severe pain from traumatic injuries being treated by paramedics on 911 calls. And there's just not time to have that informed consent conversation. So instead, this study operates under an exemption from informed consent or EFIC. And part of the EFIC process is the community consultation phase of the study, where we go around to various organizations and local governments, purchase advertisements on Front Porch Forum and Facebook, local radio and newspapers, to ensure that people have an opportunity to learn about the study, ask questions, give feedback, opt out if they don't want to participate. And PAIN is a nationwide study based out of the University of Pittsburgh and funded by the Department of Defense. Vermont is one of 12 sites from around the country participating in the study. And the DoD is interested in learning what is the best pain medication for prolonged field care. Here in Vermont, we have really long transport times, often over an hour, depending on geography and weather and road closures. And we also want to know which of these two medications is best for treating pain. So we're here today because we want to come and let you know that the study is happening in the area. And as local government leaders or residents of Richmond listening here tonight, if you had any questions, any feedback, or other thoughts about this study coming to the area.
Here in the audience, we have a hand that went straight up.
If I'm allergic.
Could you state your name?
Oh, sorry, Andrew Corch. I'm allergic to one of those two compounds.
Yeah.
I'm also a chemist, so I know exactly what I'm allergic to. How do I opt out if I'm incapacitated and you don't know that?
Yeah. So if you're incapacitated right now, if you were in a situation where you were needing pain medication, paramedics would have that conversation with you. And you can opt out of the study by getting a known pain study bracelet. But for your situation, because that's our standard treatment anyways, I think just your normal, if you have a medical alert bracelet that.
Those are, those are.
Yeah. So this is our standard treatment already. So even without this study, if you were completely incapacitated, unable to communicate with EMS, and didn't have, your phone set up for the medical alert feature on there, we wouldn't know.
If you were unresponsive, they wouldn't be giving you.
Yeah. I'm well aware of that.
They wouldn't be giving you medication,
Exactly.
even without the study.
Okay.
By
Yeah,
standard, by existing.
I stay away from studies, like this is part of what I do for a living. I stay away from these sorts of things as much as possible. And I'm not drinking one of those compounds, so I want to make sure that if something were to happen, that my rights are as a private citizen are.
Okay, thank you. Very good question. Sorry, Select Board. I went to him first because his hand went up like a rocket. Do you have any questions? Any questions from other members of the audience?
actually,
Anybody
sorry.
on-
I do have a question.
Go
So
ahead. Yep.
in light of that, and are there I saw no study bracelets available, and where would one find one of those
Yeah.
if they wanted one?
There are study bracelets available. That's probably that's the most surefire way to opt out. But like we said, parents will be telling patients what they're getting. But if someone does want a no pain study bracelet, they can just go to a website. They can get in contact with me or the select board. So there's a website with a form to request a bracelet.
Great. And you said that you guys also check the app on the phone, the emergency app, so they could put a note in there too, potentially.
Yeah, that's general EMS care is looking for medical information and looking at other things, but that's not guaranteed. Your phone might be in your car if you're in a car accident, and it's just the only certain way to opt out is that bracelet there.
Gotcha.
Bart?
A quick question for those of us who are not medical professionals, was the term compensated shock?
Yes.
Could you just briefly describe for the uninitiated
Yeah.
what compensated shock actually is?
Absolutely. So for this study, it's defined as your heart rate is greater than your systolic blood pressure. So, if compensated shock means your body is compensating to have an adequate blood pressure to maintain vital functions.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, questions? Well, I want to thank the Richmond Rescue people and our state clinical research coordinator and all that for letting us know about this. Again, it's not something for the select board to approve, but it's certainly nice for the townspeople to know about it.
I'll only add that I find it somewhat reassuring that health research is continuing in some fashion.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, thank you,
you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is the one everybody has probably been waiting for. consideration of approving the engineering plan for the Southview 3-acre permit. Now, I'm going to pass this on to Josh, and is our engineer here on the call?
Yeah, Andre is joining us. He'll actually let's pass it directly to him. He's got all the information for the update.
Introduce him, tell the people who he is.
Sure, this is Andres Torizo from Watershed Consulting. He's been working for the last about a year now on the Southview 3-acre permit. And he's here with an update. Last he was here, we looked at some potential structures for mitigation for the to comply with the permit, and he's here with some more updates on that.
I just wanted to say it out loud, Caitlin, I'm abstaining because I'm affected, so, yeah. Townsperson.
Recusing.
Recusing.
Okay, Andres, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me back to give an update on the Southview 3-acre permit. So the last time that I met with the board, I presented on a system that consisted of these underground chambers, and we had a discussion of the underground chambers for compliance with this 3-acre rule. So after that meeting, at that time we had received some feedback in terms of some modifications to the design from some of the homeowners, and we made a couple changes. We also completed some additional survey work on the site, and so we learned some more specifics about some of the real discrete drainage patterns. And so based on that and based on the feedback that we received at the meeting, we made some design changes. And so we now have a plan that consists of these 4 different chamber areas scattered around the subdivision that are more or less in a state where we're really looking for approval from the town to basically proceed to getting what's called this full notice of intent application packaged up and completed and submitted to the state. The town has this POA grant through the state, and although the regulatory timelines have now been extended out a bit, there is no extension for utilizing the POA funds. Currently, right now, our contracted scope with the town basically brings you to the point about where we're at now of having this progress plan done. And the town to stay on the to stay on the grant funding schedule that the state has put forward, basically need to have a complete application no later than October 1st. And so my recommendation to the town, talking with Josh, is to actually try to get something submitted sooner than that, because there's really going to be a flood of different applications. And the reason being is that this grant money has a timeline. It needs to be spent by September of next year, and the state has been giving this grant deadline of October so that they have time to review all the applications that are going to be coming in. So it's really important to meet that. And meeting that, I guess, just to say, it doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be any time for additional adjustments to the design. There will be, because really there's going to be a period of time where the application will just sit for a while the state kind of goes through a backlog. So I think it'd be several months after October before anybody might even be looking at it. But just to say all that, I guess some of the other things that we've done, in addition to the 4 chamber areas, we have done a complete kind of this disconnection study, this disconnection analysis. And so that consisted of visiting several of the properties on site. We were able to, right now, currently, we're proposing disconnecting or showing the state that we have disconnecting conditions on 1.39 acres of impervious surface. So essentially, that's area that can be classified as kind of credit towards meeting the rules, where we don't otherwise need to do anything. So that's good, because it's a really steep site. So any amount that we can get out of the need to do structural measures is, you know, is kind of what we've done with that disconnection analysis. So we have that all identified on a map. And so what we're left with is the 4 chamber areas where we have to do structural measures in order to meet the rules. So I'm assuming the board has a copy of the latest plan. I'm also looking at one right now, and okay, yeah. So I guess with that, I'm happy to walk through the plan set. I'm happy to just take any questions now and anything that I've, you know, described so far. Whatever your preference is, just let me know.
For Bart,
One just subtopic, and maybe we'll get into this as a function of questions from citizens, was by the town submitting the application, does that mean the town owns the project 100%? What are the implications of submitting a grant? Because 3 or 4 years ago, we were getting advice, don't submit an application because you apply for it, you own it as the town.
Right.
So I just think it's relevant to ask the question again here today.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, basically, you know, last year the town did submit the actual notice of intent, and that went in with the cover letter that basically said, you know, we're submitting the notice of intent, but we're not, you know, saying that we own in full the project. So I think that the real answer to that, I think, needs to be from, yeah, this is the letter to Terry. It's really kind of a question more so between the town and I guess the state at this point. That, you know, the town is the one listed on the existing permit, but then obviously this letter here has been sent to the state. And so, you know, I know just from my experience with dealing with these permits, if the town were to put forward this application and submit it, you know, there's always the ability to add a co-permittee in the future or make any amendments or anything like that. So it's not that everything is set in stone once that application goes in. There is always time to, you know, to make some changes to it, I guess, after it goes in.
Well, so my follow-up question is it why, well, I'll reframe that. It would seem feasible or plausible or desirable to basically take the same letter and send it with our October application. It has some of the same content, right? That's policy approach from the beginning. So
I don't really, yeah, I don't see a problem with doing that if the town would like to do that.
We could also ask Dave Rue, our attorney, for advice, because he's the one that had advice on this letter, and I think
it seems
actually drafted
appropriate.
it, so.
But it would just seem as a natural course, having said this is our policy position, that we would reiterate the same policy position at the next application as opposed to some other policy position. Does that make sense to you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think just to pass the test of having a complete application, you know, my understanding, it's basically an administratively complete application is what the state's looking for to meet kind of the terms for the grant funds that the town has, is really just checking the box that we have a set of plans, we have the modeling calculations, we have a narrative. So it's really all the technical documents. The notice of intent and the signed form have already been submitted. So it's just a matter of me being able to kind of upload those technical documents and having somebody, the administrative person at the state, go through the list to make sure that they're all, you know, in place.
Sure. And go. Okay. State your name. Shall I come up? Sure. Yeah. My name is Tom Walters. I live with my spouse Shannon on the corner of Westall and Southview. And I'm very glad that Andre is here. I do believe I just heard him say that it's quite late for technical changes to the plan. Is that what I heard? The reason I ask is because I have some big questions about the plan. I only saw it a few days ago, but I've been maintaining that corner for a long time. And I think there's some problems with the plan. Are you able to bring up my document, Josh?
Your document? I don't know.
I shared it with you twice. It's a Google sheet.
You shared it, when did you share it with me? I'm
Yesterday
sorry.
and today.
Just
Via
be,
email? Okay,
could
sorry.
I ask you a
I'll
question
try to
before you
find
do
it.
that? Could you clarify for everybody just which property we're talking?
Not, because the people at home won't be able to see the point.
Well, we can use our mouse.
That's right.
Yeah, hold on. So the area we're talking about is right here. This is our property here. And
Scroll down.
I mean, I can begin before, you know,
To the map.
about my presentation. I
Oh,
was
what is that?
one thing that jumped out at me immediately was that a stream that goes through our property is not even on the plan. And this stream, yeah, I mean, if our goal is to clean up storm water or runoff, it seems to me like this, we ought to think about this stream. Particularly, well, great, that's the intersection? Yeah, okay. So the stream runs right through here. It's not just like a stream that shows up after storms, it's a stream. And I can tell you that this is our stone wall. And over the last 4 or 5 years, all the soil has eroded from the front of that wall, gone into the stream. Secondly, this chamber here, in my humble opinion, I am not an engineer, makes absolutely no sense. The reason is that this road, I'll say it again, this road is crowned to the south. Which is, my rock wall is in danger of collapsing. All the water from here and from about here and from about here goes right there. And if you look right there, the engineers said there's erosion, and there is. And we've been there 21 years, and I think I'm on my 5th hay bale. I put hay bales down there to try to stop the erosion, but it's really not working. This rock wall has sunk, I'm gonna say upwards of a foot. Across 21 years. Now, what I wish you could, is there no way to get my,
I just haven't seen the email yet. I'll have to, let me stop sharing, see if I can find it.
if you could get me on the Wi-Fi, I could share it from my iPad.
Oh, if you shared me an email, he's just got an email, but we'll see if we can't find it.
Well,
What's your name?
Tom Walters.
This is the Walters.
It's
Okay.
So yeah, I want to reiterate, I'm not an engineer. I could be wrong, but I have an idea that I'd like to show.
It looks like we found it. We're gonna try to bring it up.
So just as you're pulling it up, this is really substantive about the engineering plan, if you will.
Well, that chamber where it
Yeah.
is will reflect very little water.
Well, so if I can yeah, this is great. So I can see the image that you're talking about, and I do completely understand where you're talking about, and I do know exactly where the stream is, although it's not, identified with a blue line on the plans. I know exactly where it is, and I can see with the contouring that's on the plans kind of reflects where that stream is.
Right.
And
Stream
so,
itself, not on the plan.
sorry. Can you say that again?
The stream itself is not on the plan.
Yeah, that blue line there, Andres.
Right. Yes.
However, it is on maps that are provided by the by A&R.
No, yeah, no, I guess I'm agreeing with you that I'm saying that the design plan doesn't identify the stream, but I know where it is, and it's reflective basically, by the topography on the plan. That's all I was trying to say. But I do see your green lines, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think that one thing just that's important to understand with this 3-acre rule is it really is an exercise in trying to collect, the impervious surface itself. And it's not always, the state isn't always looking at these, these issues that may not really be apparent, I guess, until you really dig into them. And I see what you're talking about, but the chamber is really not designed, to pick up any of those areas. The chamber, as you can see, there's a culvert that comes under Southview Drive, and so there's water flow that would be going directly into the chamber from Joan Ave, and then also to the north, Southview Drive up to the next culvert that basically ends at the.
Not part of the 3-acre rule.
That's not our.
Well,
That is
so
not for subdivisions. Why do we have to mitigate it?
yeah, so let me just clarify that because I did see the question that came up about that. So there is a culvert that's not shown on this plan that's off the plan, and that actually diverts that water, which is not part of the 3-acre rule, into the stream, into this same stream that we're talking about. So this
Hold on,
chamber,
Yeah. That's the point.
sorry?
I said, I'm sorry, Andre. My name's Tom, by the way. That's the point. We're trying to keep it out of the stream, right?
Yeah, but I think what he's saying is that the water at the delineation between your subdivision and the secondary one or whatever, the water from the northern part of Southview Drive is diverted into the stream.
Right.
So this structure would only catch water below that culvert, which would in fact be coming from your subdivision.
Right.
So
I have.
what you're saying is the water is going to flow uphill?
No.
No.
I don't
What
follow.
I'm saying is that if you look at, Josh, can you scroll back up to the top line? So what Andres is saying is if you look at the top, yeah, right there. So where the purple line is, it delineates the first and then the second or secondary subdivision.
line.
There is a culvert there that directs water from north of that line into the stream. So it wouldn't carry down the road in the swale. So this would only be catching water
Not in the
100
stream.
yards and change
Right.
below that culvert.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the site, but I understand what he's saying because this is on the construction side of it. This is what I do for a living, and I've looked at these, and this is not a ridiculous structure, and this is often how they seem to be installed. So,
A
Yeah.
very wonderful structure. It's just in the wrong place. And
I think that I mean, I'm not qualified to say that.
I'm not
but
either.
neither are you. He
Yeah,
is, and he's
sure.
designing it.
Except
So I think
that-
that we can't say that.
I've been landscaping that corner for 21 years and trying to save it.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
my
know if this
point
is
is
address
that
that.
very, very little water is going to go into that chamber. I mean, I know the way the crowning of the road. If I could, there's a document I created that's like my plan, which of course probably in the real world has no bearing.
I guess the one thing I would say is that the more water you catch, the bigger the chamber is going to be. So is this really a path you guys want to push for? Like, do you want to catch?
If
If you're not required to?
well, see, that's the rub, right? Do we want to clean up the water or do you want to just please the state?
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say.
Yes to both. Yeah.
I would say that as a select board member and someone who's not directly involved in this, I'm getting mixed signals now because basically every other person in Southview has said we want to please the state or do nothing. And now you're saying you want to go above and beyond and
Well,
clean stuff up. So
I don't think it's
I gotta
above and beyond.
clear-
I think, I don't know if it's above and beyond, but I know it's more logical if my plan is logical, if that.
Right.
makes
Well, Josh is pulling your plan up. Why don't we let Andres reply to the several points that were just brought up?
Thank you. Yeah, I think one thing that I would just offer, and this is just, I haven't, this is going to be the town and the homeowner's decision, but on some of these, I'm not saying they're insignificant or small issues because I understand it's a very concerning issue to you, but I think that, within the context of this design, it's possible that there could be some ways to address some of your concern. For instance, changing some of the grading at that intersection, and then, maybe piping that water back into the chamber to kind of help take some of the water, which is, just sheet flowing off of that intersection in the road and kind of bringing it into the chamber, maybe by adding another catch basin or something like that. And, that kind of thing can definitely be discussed and integrated into the design, after the first application goes in, because you're going to have 5 years to actually construct anything out there. And so within that 5-year time, there is time to the state is always open to amendments or anything. And some small changes like that might not even require any types of amendments. So I'm just kind of, I wanted to just frame that for you because, we're involved in a lot of these, and this kind of thing comes up all the time where people say, well, hey, well, we have this flooding issue or we have this erosion issue. This is not, your solution's not necessarily going to address that. And we've, figured out ways to basically try to solve both problems, you know, the regulatory problem and then things like this by way of curbing or new catch basin or whatever. So just wanted to kind of mention that. And you know,
To address we want to have it both ways. I actually spoke to sort of my neighbors yesterday because I was hesitant to come down because, you know, maybe this will add money. I hope not, but I just don't want to throw good money after bad.
I think that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, could we just, I know we got to get going, but could you bring up my quote unquote plan?
Well, actually, Kurt Hill.
Before you do, so
Sure.
I appreciate your whole point about this 3-acre stormwater rule, which from the beginning, we've made comments like, maybe it's not really intended to divert
Yeah.
like particulates from the lake. It's intended to meet this arbitrary compliance standard. But if to cut to the chase here, you're sort of, if I understand it, you're suggesting that this chamber 4 might be better built on the other side of the road?
Nope, I would like
Okay.
to show you my plan.
Okay.
And this was formulated after many walkings of the dog.
Was that in a different email, Tom?
Is that a metaphor or?
It is, I don't hope it means what I think.
Trying to find
Was
it.
that in a different email or was it the one I had up?
I think that will open Google Doc.
Oh, it was in the Google Doc, which it, and that didn't seem to be, oh, there's more below. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so I think if you scroll down, and by the way, this is the A&R map, that clearly shows that street.
Yep, I'm aware of that.
And then I think if you keep going down, George, if you can.
Sure.
All right, here's the plan, if you will. This is the Southview, and again, it may make no sense.
Same
This
intersection.
is that same intersection. There's the chamber, which I don't think will do anything. If it'll make you feel good, we can leave these two, I call them trains, I don't know what else to call them. My blue lines are pipes. All the water collects along the well, I guess it's the southern edge of West Olive Drive. So it makes sense to me, this is the Sobel property here. It makes sense to me that no chamber, this goes down Southview, and then if you go to the next image. Below that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clear my annotations so I don't cut them.
Did I just?
No, you're not a weatherman yet. But I also am not a Zoom expert, so how do I clear those? Let me.
So as it says here, this Piper culvert would flow through the area depicted in plan 2.3.
Was on this
Below
one.
this?
Okay.
There an undo arrow anywhere?
Yeah, there should be. I was trying to be helpful and now I'm taking more.
Red circles on your.
I'm sensitive. It looks like you have a big agenda tonight, so
No, this is actually probably the most important thing on the agenda.
Yeah.
We have the time.
All right, so I just needed to find my right tool here, Tom, so bear with me.
Okay.
Nope. Okay, so I think now I gotta get out of this. Come on. Okay,
And it's somewhat arbitrary where I put those
there we go.
drains.
So now we're
Okay, so
here.
this is further south, down Southview. This is the pipe that would come from the intersection of Southview and
Yeah.
West Olive. And there is a really good spot, in my humble opinion, for a chamber over here rather than close to the Carlson property. And it just seems like it would be easy to do a call, you do this fine. We know that this is a wet area. They have a pond pretty much every spring. And so that could also go into the chamber. It's all downhill. From an engineering standpoint, I have no idea if this makes any sense whatsoever. But I'm willing to bet that chamber where it is now is just gonna be upkeep.
Okay.
So your idea is to replace 2 of the existing sites with a new chamber site?
Really, all it would be was moving the chamber from the intersection further south. That would be it, with force line
Catch
pipes.
basins and
Or,
pipes.
I don't know if they're pipes or drains or whatever. you
Yeah.
call it. Okay,
Okay.
that's my thoughts.
Okay.
I also don't want us to be looking at this in 10 more years because we did it wrong.
It's a good
Which
point.
seems like it's pretty easy to do when you're dealing with state of.
Okay. So
Andre, thank you.
Yeah,
This June, you've had your hand up for
Does
quite a
Andre
while.
have,
Andre, I'm sorry, do you want to respond to anything else Tom
Yeah.
said?
If just real quickly, I definitely appreciate that, Tom, and just to give you just some of my quick thoughts. The state would not unfortunately approve that. You can see how close it is to the stream right there. So that's that's gonna raise a flag for permitting. So we wouldn't be able to.
All that water going into the stream?
Right. So yeah, it's, the rules are kind of a little odd, but
Gosh, I
we,
guess.
we can't cite new stormwater features next to streams like that. And the other issue is we're really trying to maximize the use of the really good soil, which is up on the top of the hill. And the soils that are down here are really poor and obviously wet. And so we're only doing that other chamber that you see across the road as necessity because we need to provide, the amount of treatment site wide, but it's kind of reluctantly because the soils up on the top of the hill are much better. And what that translates into is directly costs for you. Because when we have poor soil, the structures get bigger and they get much more complicated. And so, it really translates into additional costs. So doing, the work down here would require a much bigger chamber, in addition to not being permittable by the state. So that's kind of why, we wouldn't necessarily be able to do this. But it's something good to consider for sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
June, you've had your hand up for quite a while. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll get to you next?
Yeah, it's less of a question than a statement. So earlier when you were talking about the NOI and like who's going to take responsibility, I would highly recommend that the select board become very familiar with Act 37, which was H 481. That changes a lot of what was being talked about previously with the 3-acre rule. One of those things is there are benefits to having the town take full responsibility. And part of that is grants being available to you. And in addition, part of that act is that there is going to be a study on stormwater management and the creation of a regional stormwater utility district, which also means money that will be available. So before you decide that the town shouldn't take full responsibility, it would be imperative to really know Act 37 and the benefits of doing that.
Art?
That would seem to have implications for Greystone as well, right?
It will have implications for all 3-acre impervious surfaces.
And my only point to us as a select board is that if we're contemplating that, it's not just this one site.
Right, but there will be money available and the act spells that out.
And does it say how much money?
It certainly does. It's millions.
Statewide?
I have to go back and read it. Yes, but I think for the municipalities, it's at least $1 million, but that's why I think it's important for you guys to know the details.
Okay, actually, I'm going to bring the summary of that act up. This is something that several of us from Richmond testified to the Senate Water and Natural Resources Committee. Now, if I could just make this bigger, what am I doing wrong? This document is a 3-paragraph or so summary of a much longer document. And to rapidly summarize it, the first paragraph references that the deadline for compliance for the Lake Champlain, Lake Memphremagog, and stormwater impaired watersheds is now pushed out to October 1, 2028. Other watersheds, which doesn't relate to us, is 2038. So that's one thing we've got going for us. A second thing is the second paragraph here. It amends the eligibility criteria for the Municipal Stormwater Implementation Program and the Developed Lands Implementation Program and clarifies that both programs are available to provide financial assistance for the compliance with the 3-acre stormwater permit. The Act also provides that the Clean Water Board shall recommend at least $1 million annually for the Stormwater Implementation Program until 2032, and the Act requires the Clean Water Board to recommend $5 million for the Stormwater Implementation Program in 2027. Also, because one of the things that the Senate committee that we testified in front of was particularly cognizant of is the extreme difficulty of managing a program like this when there is not one central organization of homeowners to work with, when there's no legacy organization of any kind that can be pointed to. And so that's where the third paragraph comes in. The Senate Secretary of Natural Resources is required to come up with solutions for Gordian knots like that and give us advice on how we can legally comply so that we're not just floundering around out there in the dark. So to summarize, deadlines pushed out, lots of money available, and them owning up to the fact that their regulations right now are pretty much impossible to follow. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Good summary.
So my name is Andrew Korich. I live in the Southview Estates. I have several questions, some of which have probably already been covered. One of which, the last email that I feel like has been circulated around our neighborhood has said that this project has not been bidded out to find the lowest possible financial cost to the homeowners. Is that true? And if so, why has that not been the case?
The engineering or the construction?
Engineering.
Oh, okay.
And or the construction.
Well, we're still in the very early phases of the engineering, and we have a grant that's covering this portion of the engineering.
But we're here to approve this project. How come we have not heard of other scenarios where other projects have been?
Because this is the engineer that we hired to give us the.
So you hired one
determinations.
engineer for the entire neighborhood, and this is it, and that's it. Is that correct?
That's how.
Okay, so you don't have to approve.
Engineer.
Oh, no, I know you don't have to approve it. I'm laying the groundwork for things down the road.
So this is so this portion of it is paid for by a grant.
Okay, but again, one.
Yeah, so at our
company has
cost,
been hired.
at our cost, we could hire a different engineer to propose a different plan if we wanted to, if we thought it was gonna be advantageous.
But the email that was circulated was from, I believe, I apologize if it was not from you. That said that this may not be the most fiscally responsible or fiscally viable endeavor. And if that's the case.
I mean, I guess that's potentially true because.
Exactly, then why are we not in?
Andres is proposing what he believes to be the most.
No, he's proposing the one that's most environmentally impactful, not the one that's.
Synonymous in this case, because he's trying to propose for the maximum environmental impact or mitigation to meet the requirement for the least amount of money.
Okay, I don't know if that's true.
I mean, I guess we're relying on him to do that.
I think Andres could speak to that. I mean, we've talked about, I just want to say, we've talked about the cost of this a lot over the last year. I think Andres is well aware that we're looking to keep that low, and maybe he can add some more to the conversation.
Yeah, I can definitely add more to the conversation. Yeah, the top priority is really finding the most cost-effective solution, not only the upfront costs for the town and the homeowners, but also just the long-term maintenance costs. Absolutely. I mean, that's priority. Obviously, the first priority is meeting the rules, but right up there with meeting the rules is trying to find the most inexpensive solution to meet the rules. And so I explained this, I think maybe the first time I met with the board, that the easiest way to do that is to go and try to prioritize areas where there's good soil conditions, and there happens to be very good soil conditions where we can utilize these chambers. And this is saving, a lot of money versus doing something like, for example, a large wetland or something constructed way down at the bottom of the hill. Doing these structures right up tight, close. You will not see them once they go in. They're relatively straightforward to maintain. They're going to be taking advantage of the good soil conditions. This is, I feel really confident this is going to be a very cost-effective solution for.
So the plans that we saw clearly had visible concrete. I don't know, cistern. I don't know what you want to call them. They're not cisterns,
Chambers.
but like chambers. Thank you. Above ground, which I then went and surveyed in Wilson, 5 different neighborhoods, all of which had these sorts of concrete chambers associated with them. Some of them had many, we'll call them 100, 150 foot trenches dug leading up to them. I spoke to one woman actually today. I won't say her name, but if the select board is willing, I will divulge it privately. Where her basement is flooded after the cistern was put in or the chamber was put in. And so my question for the committee is, if that scenario were to happen, we don't have an HOA. Her HOA covered her basement 5 consecutive years until they fixed it. What's gonna happen if we put in a chamber and something happens to one of our houses?
Well, I'm not an attorney, so I don't have an answer to that.
I don't have an answer.
You go ahead and approve a plan like this without those answers.
No, that's a good point. Those are answers we'd like to have.
My other question is for, I guess, Andres, is are there going to be trenches dug in our front yards to lead the water from point A to point B? Because where you have a cistern, I can agree with my neighbor here. It doesn't seem likely that it's going to collect anything. Right? It's at the bottom of Westall Extension. It feeds through my property and down into the backwoods. Where you're putting it isn't going to collect anything, maybe 2 houses.
So are we talking, just for my clarification, are we still talking about the same one that's at the corner of West Hall and Southview? Is that the one?
No, we're now talking about the one at the bottom of Westall Extension.
Okay. Right, so there are, so to get the water flow in there, there are 2 catch basins. So you were talking about things above ground, so there's nothing proposed, above the ground. You would see a catch basin. On this design, there would basically be, like a catch basin kind of on either side of the circle. And so that water flow, is coming down the road towards the circle. It comes under the driveways on either side of the circle. And after it comes under those driveways, it would be picked up in a catch basin. So that's what that square is. But that's, all that is basically the grate, that's flush to the ground.
And I'm telling you right now, that will not catch any water on the western side of that slope.
Okay.
It will feed all through my property into my back 2 acres that then feeds into another 100 and some odd acres of wooded lands. I have no idea why we're doing this.
And just so we know, which property are you here on this?
If you could,
site?
sorry, go up a little bit. I'm that property right there. Yeah, that one right there, yep.
And where are you saying that the water escapes? We have
I'm not gonna disclose that to you.
Okay.
I have no rights to. And my brother-in-law does exactly what you do. When this all went down, he told me to sell my house.
Okay.
Oh, which by the way, my neighbor couldn't do because it's.
Okay. So I'm looking to the board and we're hearing a lot of questions regarding this engineering plan. Now, the item on the agenda was to consider approving this engineering plan, but we're hearing a lot of questions and I'm not sure if, well, I'm pretty sure the audience is not, our citizens are not satisfied with the answers. What do y'all, go ahead.
I guess I don't understand what your complaint is. You don't want them to spend.
Sir, we can't hear. Could you speak up?
My question is, what's your complaint? You don't want them to spend the money or you don't want to touch your piece of property?
I don't want to touch my piece of property. No, nor do I want to be liable for the maintenance down the road.
No, they said it's on the right of way of the property, town property, so
I'm
that's
sorry.
a different question to make. I've been there much longer than you. So.
Absolutely.
Sir,
So,
could you state your name for the record?
Say that again. My name is Dana Bianchi.
Thank you.
So, I just, some of the things you're saying, you can't sell properties, come on. It's not a horrible place, and what they're asking for isn't that horrible, not that much is gonna show. And I guess.
You got an extra 45 grand to throw at basic
I didn't-
fly wells? Seriously?
I agree.
I didn't say.
This engineering
Hey,
thing was a joke.
Let's preserve decorum. You're welcome to share your opinions, but you're not welcome to shout.
To understand these questions.
Let him finish.
What the cost? I don't even know the cost. That's a great question. What the cost is my question, and who's gonna maintain it? So
Okay.
you don't have to get so angry.
Yeah, because you must have.
Sir,
45 grand.
Let's take
My
turns.
daughter's disabled and.
Let's not shout over each other.
Something, so no, I don't.
I did
Sir, would
everything
you like to
for
come
us.
up?
I
So
can.
just,
Would you like to come up?
it's one of the raise your voice.
Fine, let's just try to take turns.
My name's Matt Leonetti. I'm a Southview resident. Andreas, can you please tell me what the soil classifications for the Southview Estates are? Because I will say, I am having chamber one put in my front yard. I've been there 13 years. I have no water that sits in my yard, period. I also have plants in my front yard that are worth more than 5 figures, and you're gonna dig those up? So the only reason that I have water puddling at the bottom of my driveway is because of the town that wants to come through and skim coat asphalt every year. Absolute waste of money. So I'm really curious why you're proposing a dry well on my property that literally would catch water from my property and nothing else based on how the road is crowned. So please explain to me how, when my property is completely disconnected, you have a chamber one, which I don't even know what it is. Is it plastic? Are you sinking plastic in my neighborhood when we have a problem with plastics on this planet? Please explain to me how you came up with chamber one where it sits.
Okay, let's give him a chance to answer.
I don't think this is gonna be productive, honestly. I mean, all these are proposed in the right of way. None of this is on private
Well,
property.
my question is, if it's
It's
in the
my
right of way,
yard.
it's his front, he's saying it's his front yard.
Yeah, but I mean, he did go out of his way to put it on, in the town right of way, so the town would own it. The town would have to maintain it and fix it and all that. I mean, I understand having stuff in our yard sucks. But he did put a lot of effort into try to keep it in the town portion of the land so that no one's directly property you're paying taxes on is impacted. I mean, I think that's worth stating. I still get it's frustrating. I'm not saying it's not
Right.
frustrating.
Can I put one in your front yard?
If I had to put one in the right, I mean, if I had to get one in my front yard or my neighborhood and it was gonna go in the right of way, it'd be the least bad option. That's
Well,
kind of what I do for a living is least bad options. I get it. I mean, I'm not saying you should be happy about it at all.
Okay. Sarah, would you like to come up?
Unless Andre wanted to respond.
Okay, Andre, if you have a response, by all means.
Well, I just hope, I wanted people that maybe hadn't heard, you know, when I first gave the presentation on what these chambers are, to understand that these are, they go underground. So obviously when they would be constructed, there would be an excavation open there. But they're designed, you know, we put them there because basically you grass them over and then the swale goes on top and you would never know that there's a chamber there other than you know, a manhole structure that you could open to get into them, to maintain them. So they're, you know, the thought behind it was trying to minimize to the absolute extent we could any impacts to anybody, you know, within the neighborhood. So, I mean, that was the intent. I just wanted to make sure there's nothing like sticking up above the ground, because there was, I think, somebody had mentioned some like a concrete structure above the ground. There's nothing like that here. This would basically just be grass. The grass channel kind of as it is right now after it went in.
Sarah?
Hi, Sarah, hi, I'm Southview resident. I guess I have a couple comments, if folks can remain calm as I give them. The first one is, I do think that there's some very real concerns that folks have about the proposal here. And so I'm wondering, I recall months and months ago, seeing a proposal from the engineers that they would actually like have a meeting with the residents to kind of talk through a plan. And I'm just wondering if that might be beneficial to have a little more time to like really look at what they're proposing and talk about the whys and get more feedback from residents so people feel like they're being heard. And we can have this be more of a conversation. I feel like it's just becoming a little more of a confrontation at this point. So that's the first thing I would propose. Secondly, you know, I go into the question of, you know, submitting the NOI and whether the town's going to be taking full responsibility for this. I was looking at the emails from the state that were received when the sort of preliminary application went in. And my interpretation of it, I could be wrong, but my interpretation of it was that they basically said without the homeowners joining the application, if the town's not saying is taking responsibility, they're not going to accept it. So I am a little concerned that maybe we're at a point where there does have to be a decision made. And Adam, like you're saying, if these are all going to go into the town right away and the town's going to agree to maintain them over time, I don't know if that was you shooting from the hip or if that's the actual plan.
Yeah, that wasn't a commitment, sorry.
Fair. And that's what I'm just saying, like, you know, if we're moving in that
I can't
direction.
commit to that on my own.
Yeah, like if we're moving in that direction, I know, under the current law, the new legislation that was passed, there is still, even if the town takes responsibility, there's a potential assessment that the homeowners could, have to pay a portion of it, but I think there's also a bigger conversation to be had there around, well, if part of our private property has been disconnected, what's the current proportion we're responsible for versus the town? How would that happen? So people fully understand what they're being asked of. And also, like, not having a cost estimate for all this makes this a really hard conversation to have too. So I just want to kind of throw all those considerations out there. I don't know that we have like straight up answers right now, but
And since one of my goals as a member of the select board is to treat people who are similarly situated in a similar fashion, I cannot escape considering Greystone, where there is a town road going through private property. The only difference is they do have a homeowners association. So if we're going to own everything in Southview, I contemplate the question, why doesn't the town or in all the taxpayers own everything in Greystone and in Southview? And there may be others. So that's the implication of equity and consistency comes up for me.
understand that, and I understand it's a tough decision. That being said, if we have to submit an NOI, we have to find a way to do it that the state will accept. And, for Greystone, my understanding is that, you could go down a similar road where you'd accept full responsibility. However, there'd be a shared cost with the residents there by the special assessment. They'd have to vote in favor of that, majority of homeowners. There's a bunch of boxes that have to be checked off. And I do feel like we're operating under kind of a condensed timeline because we had to submit this by October 1. So I also want to emphasize that aspect to it. But I do feel like this is like a bigger conversation than maybe we're able to have tonight. And that would be beneficial for us to have an opportunity to talk more directly with the engineers, maybe in person, to get a better idea of what they're proposing and why, and also what the costs are going to be associated with this and how those costs would be apportioned between homeowners and the town.
Okay, so I think Ms. Heim has made some good points. This may not be the best forum to really dig into the intricacies of the plan, but the plan definitely could bear some digging into.
I have one question for Andres. I know in his emails, he mentioned that he's working on cost estimates, but it won't be ready tonight. Do you have like a timeline on like a first pass cost estimate?
Yeah, I should be able to get that soon. I've reached out to the vendors and I just haven't gotten anything back from them yet.
Okay.
But
Just are we talking like weeks or months ballpark?
with weeks. Yeah,
Okay.
a couple weeks. I could have
So we have like 3
cost.
months before we would need to formally submit this. And if he's talking weeks, that should give us like, we could have at least that one piece of information before we have this conversation.
So on the timeline though, Andres, could you speak to the timeline with where we are as far as decision making to get things submitted in time to comply
Right.
with the grant? And then also maybe what we're able to change, like even if we submit this plan, it sounds like if there's changes, even after we submit to comply with the grant, there's still an ability for some changes to the plan if we determine there's a different course we'd rather take.
That's right. I mean, there really is not, I mean, the reality is that there's a lot of work that we need to do in order to prepare the necessary application documents that go even beyond kind of the design. All of the supporting calculations and spreadsheets and stuff need to be done and all the mapping. And so for us, just for our timelines, we really, there isn't a lot of room to totally change course on the design. Since, I mean, the design, yeah, I mean, there really isn't, but the reality is that, like I was saying, I think if the application does go in, the state's looking for it to be administratively incomplete. So that means that the components are all there in place. And so there is still time after that goes in to make changes to the design, to make adjustments. And there's always, even after the permit is issued, even, next year probably, there's always an opportunity to amend the permit before you are actually going to be required to construct anything, because, that's going to be out greater than 5 years from now, and you actually have to, implement anything. So there is time, but like between now and October, like we couldn't, for instance, like start making design changes and then decide September 1st that we want to be able to finish the plans and then submit the application. We just can't. We won't have enough time to do that.
Okay, David, you started to raise your hand. Did you want to say something or?
No. Come back to me.
Hush up. Okay.
So I just want to be clear, this is Bart, is it plausible? I mean, we're here July 7th to have a meeting with the property owners
That's what I was gonna say.
and talk about potential modifications and actually make potential modifications between now and October.
I think it depends what types of modifications you're talking about. I guess within the structure of kind of the existing design framework, the chamber design. I think that there's definitely some opportunity to make some adjustments, make some changes. If we're talking about scrapping this whole idea and looking at, a large constructed wetland down by the power lines or something like that, there's just definitely not enough time to do that because.
So within that guardrail, because it was my understanding that the whole point or a main point of the chamber approach was cost efficacy.
Yep.
When we were looking at this, David, briefly, like we were looking at what, like $15,000, $20,000, like, and honestly, our lister was talking like $75,000 an acre is statewide cost. This is nothing like that in terms of scale. Like, so at least it was my sense from a back of the envelope, this was approaching this at a way lower cost than many other projects around the state have run into.
I do think though, just to like go back to sort of what I was the point I was making earlier, trying to make is that having like a longer conversation with the engineers or they lay that out for us might be beneficial, where they can explain like, here is what we're proposing, here's why, here's what the alternatives were that we looked at, here's why we're not proposing those, here's what those would cost, here's how the treatment options would differ, etc. So people can fully understand what this proposal is, right?
And it's within the confines of Southview. At the very beginning, it was my position that why doesn't the state just do settling ponds along Route 89 and catch all of the flow off the entire hill?
Before it goes.
And the clear answer was it would be too expensive and the state doesn't want to do it. So if you want to do it right, I think you'd do something like that. It would cost you a lot more money. And instead, then we're saying, okay, we don't have to do it right, ostensibly. We have to do it in a way that complies with the 3-acre stormwater rule
As written.
parcel at a time. This is now we're talking about Southview. There is a Greystone issue. There is no 3-acre stormwater section in the middle of the village. And I can tell you water comes down Tilden Avenue all the time. Why is it not in scope? Because it's not in scope under the legislation.
Right. And I mean, that's a point I think many of us made to the legislature.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, was still sort of ignored or whatever. Anyway.
Having a meeting would be a good idea. David?
Yes.
Well, I was gonna suggest continuing this conversation in Southview with Andreas to walk through the proposal as it is, why it is the way it is.
Thinking that would be a good idea.
And
Ms. Silkins?
I also think that's a good idea, but I was also wondering if, not that you're going to tonight, but when the time comes and you're going to decide what to do with this, what is it that you are deciding to do when you say that we're approving this plan? Is it that you're saying, that we're approving this plan with the ability to amend the plan after the permit application? And if so, can we write that into when you're actually going to approve it so that we have the space and time to be able to review and make adjustments and have conversations, and we're not up against this timeline of being able to use the money that we were granted and still be within the permit time, but still have the ability to have all of these conversations in terms of cost, in terms of ownership, in terms of engineering plan and so forth.
yes.
Okay.
So I guess, Andres, does that make sense? Can we try to, in the next, I guess, couple of weeks, schedule a special meeting that we could go over in more detail? I know I just want to say, we did talk about this a month or so ago as well, or a couple months ago, the chamber idea, but a larger review, I suppose, and you and I can maybe talk timing on that, and I can schedule that with the select board and get notice out.
And if it's to be a walkthrough, that's not unprecedented. 4 years or so ago, we did a walkthrough of the Gateway District where it was not just homeowners and business owners out there, as anybody who cared to come. So Chelsea's point in the chat that it should be open to everybody, I think that makes sense. We need to get it scheduled. And so regarding what action to do tonight,
I guess, when are you thinking? I was thinking we are gonna be meeting in a room. Are you talking like a site visit? Like, I don't know if that's
I
gonna be.
think that might be beneficial, given people are saying it would be here and the plan says otherwise. The only way to resolve that is to be there.
Yeah.
I find it's gonna be challenging to get a lot of people on a walkthrough and get a good explanation. I just think using maps and looking at things might be easier. You have everybody in the room. You can do it on Zoom and in person.
Excuse me, Jay. Could I speak
Okay.
at some point?
Yes, Kara, but you don't live in the area and I was taking questions from people who do. But yes, you can go ahead and talk.
I want to tag on to, I've had the same thoughts as Chelsea. So I know you have done site visits and then come back and held a public hearing in the building so people could attend a meeting via Zoom or at the public hearing. Strongly recommend that you do hold a special meeting and don't do it during your select board meeting. But if you're going to hold that meeting while you're waiting for Andre's information on his cost approach with this. I mean, I got to tell the select board, I see that you are at a pinch point. You are trying to please residents in Southview and you can't please them all, as tonight's hearing is proof. I think you do have to have that special public hearing. I request that you do that, but I also request that you have the legal answers to the questions of if the town of Richmond completes the application as taking full responsibility, what that really means. So that those of us who are residents who you're going to potentially ask to pay this bill for a neighborhood, that you haven't mentioned Riverview Commons, which is the largest affordable housing area in the town of Richmond that also has a 3-acre permit. So I'm just going to ask you to please have a public hearing for this item only and not confuse it with other select board meeting and have to rush and everybody doesn't have time to have comments. Thank you.
I agree in that I think what would make the most sense is to schedule a walkthrough for anyone who wants to go on the walkthrough and then follow it up either immediately thereafter or on a separate time, a public meeting, so that those people who want to say, look, facts on the ground would have that opportunity, but then to include the greatest number of people in town, because the whole town would not possibly be able to go on a walkthrough. We then have a meeting where the information from that walkthrough is then discussed and shared. So that would be my recommendation. I want people to be able to say, no, it's right here in front of me. See, what you did on this design is not reflective of the actual terrain. There's a phrase that many people are probably familiar with. The map is not the terrain. General Von Clausewitz said that, if you care. But I think we're in a situation where we're looking right at that. The map is not the facts on the ground, and we need to settle that. So I'd like to see if we can't get that scheduled with Andres to get a walkthrough, followed by another meeting that would not take place during select board time. And then as far as the action to take tonight, I would recommend we take no action.
Makes sense to me.
Any thoughts? Does that sound like a plan that work, a walkthrough? A public meeting held at a time that the most people come to, and then we decide what to do. Yes, sir.
I'm Dave Sobel. I live in Southview. I think when you're talking about having a public meeting, you're dealing with a lot of communities. Don't have it here.
Oh, no, we probably have it
I
across
just
this.
want to make narrow record.
No, this would not be the optimal place for it. We'd probably look.
It
at
needs to be.
Yeah, maybe over in the community room.
Yeah.
It's subject to availability, but we'd have to take that into account when scheduling.
Good point.
Because if the yoga class has it, we have to let it. Yeah, well, we'll have yoga and the meeting. No, but they do go in terms of who signed up, and we tried to hold a special select board meeting and had to reschedule it because yoga had dibs in the place. All hail yoga. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for their input tonight. It's very valuable. This is not something, again, that the town of Richmond went looking for. And I said to members of our state senate that this is a grossly unfair action on their part, that they had a goal to reduce stormwater by this much. They went looking for basically orphan stormwater districts and said, guess what, you're lucky people, even though the other half of Southview is sitting right there, the water's running onto the southern part of Southview, and they are not being held responsible. And nor should they be, in my opinion. This is not a plan that makes sense, but it's the plan that we're up against. Okay, so thank you all very much. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for the work on the plans as well.
Yes, Andres, thank you very much for all the work you've put in.
Josh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to doing a site visit with you guys. Take care.
We have Jerry here. Okay. So Caitlin will return to the poll and we'll let people, welcome back. And then we will move on to the fire department. If anybody is interested, Chase, for example, if you'd like to know all about the fire department, it's not Chase. He's just not hearing me. Okay, who is that? It looks James Barrison. Okay. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is an update from the fire department. Acting Chief Jerry Levesque is here, and he has a document that we might want to share. But Jerry, tell us how things are going.
Actually, things are going good. Wish it'd slow down, but that's business we're in. Was a real busy weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We had a number of calls. And the guys are responding really well to the changeover. We had a great 4th of July. We had a lot of guys cleaning the station, cleaning the trucks. We had a great demonstration.
With a lot of people there.
People
Yeah.
watching us go to car. So we did have one application today that I contacted, so hopefully we'll get a couple more people to join the fire department.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And I'm here tonight, Josh and I sat down last Friday to update you on where we've come with the the list of items that we've been working on over the last few months.
And what I did was I took a look, started with the document that we reviewed at the May 1st meeting, added in changes and updates in red where appropriate. So hopefully it's easy to follow along. Do you guys want to sort of like walk through it from the top and just hit highlights and ask questions? Or what's that part? Yes?
Highlights, maybe?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff here, which.
It's great.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
in,
great.
in testing, we've got some scheduled hose testing and ladder testing, pump testing was completed. Personnel, we have a website, personnel. So a plan for physicals, that we've been doing over the last number of years, but I think it hasn't really been like codified exactly the steps and the timeframes in which those are going to be done. Jerry's also worked on a list of all equipment issued to firefighters, so we kind of keep track of who has what conditions it's in. It's all going to be in their personnel folders. There's some thoughts on gear washing and bunker gear, which is probably going to add some money. So if we can fit that into the current budget, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll probably have to look for the FY27 budget and figure that out.
And if I may, the gear washing is not just to make it look shiny and nice, but it's also to reduce the accumulated carcinogens, correct?
Particulates.
And Jerry, please, if you want to jump in with any more.
So ISO and FPA are recommending two different washing machines. One that washes the outside bunker gear, one that washes the vapor barrier inside. Because most of the carcinogens are on your outside. But if you wash them in the same washer, you're actually transferring them. So that might be something in the few years that we might have to look forward to purchasing another washer.
Makes sense.
On training, hazmat classes were completed. The LCD doesn't provide sexual harassment training, which is one of the recommended trainings. We'll have to look elsewhere for that training.
I'm surprised that they don't. I really am.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought they would too, but that's the word that we got back. Working on a plan for incident command system. There's going to be a sort of a sign in and sign out area where you hang your badge up to go in, and then you have that when you get out. As we get more members, it'll be a little bit more organized with somebody that's sort of assigned to that post. But right now, at least we're making some progress on a system. Number of trainings have been scheduled to be completed by August 9th, bloodborne pathogen, lockout, tagout, electrical safety, confined space. Safety data sheets are complete and at the station for all materials. There's some notes on the facility. There is a plan for a roof, but it seems like it can wait a couple of years, but we still have it in the capital plan to work towards. Back to some bunker washing. The larger water line. Highway's gonna be able to help install that. There will be some costs for labor and machines for that and materials, but significantly less than $30,000 plus for an outside contractor. Some insulated heating pipes, ceiling fans, 2 of the 4 aren't working, so we need some work there. Some plastic sheeting to keep the exhaust out of the working areas from the garage, and that'll help with the fans as well. Maybe in addition to the fire department for some more washers and dryers for the bunker gear, like Jerry was talking about. Purchase another washer for the bunker gear. Department software, this is actually really cool software. It can be done for a number of things. It can help you with the pre-plan. It can help with tracking members' physicals, tracking training and more. Jerry's done a lot of research in some companies. I don't know if you want to give a little more information, but when he started to tell me about it, you know, you can spend a little and get a little, or you can spend a lot and get a lot. So I think it's really gonna be matching up what our needs are right now with what we can get, with the ability to expand and become even more organized.
Nice.
And let's see, recruitment, we set up a web page on the website. As Jerry said, we've already gotten 2 responses to that. We haven't done a ton of outreach yet, but we're working on getting some more outreach on that. And I think the webpage, I think at least gives people an idea of what you can expect when you join the fire department. Even though I spoke for the last 5 minutes, Jerry did all the work. I was just giving the high level overview. So I want to give him credit for all of this.
Mark, I'd just like to say, so we're sort of at the tail end here. This is awesome, but I was my wheels have been turning on recruitment. Do we know, like, are there evidence-based practices for recruitment, like other brainstorms that other departments have tried? It's like, oh yeah, that worked for us in a rural area or semi-rural area, however you.
Well, we have thoughts around the junior firefighter.
Yeah. Nice.
From 16 to 17 years old.
Yeah.
But Josh and Ben Owens, Ben works for the Essex School District. And he knows a lot more about it than I do. And I think that not putting more work on Josh, but he wants to get with you sometime.
Sure.
And talk more about what, if we can do it through the insurance or not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's but there'd be so many limitations. As the kids could come, they could participate very little. They cannot go actual fight fires, but they could do the minor stuff like roll up the hose and, you know, learn how to use a nozzle, and during practice, they can wear the SCBAs and stuff like that.
Nice.
Don't like 18-year-olds do amphibious assaults with the Marines? Just saying.
I think this would be for those under 18 who are still in high school. And we do have
Somebody in mind for doing it.
we do have a preliminary response from VLCT that said that we could do that. We just have to get some of the details, and like you said, there'll be limitations.
It's more 16, 17. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And right now, Bolton has that course, Underhill, Jericho, and Hinesburg all have a junior members course.
That's great.
So there's resources we can tap since we initiate it.
Well, it's wonderful that it's all this stuff is good, but I just perked up when I heard that you have people actually applying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I also really love the juniors program if that works, because then you get more people to help out with some of the stuff that maybe is nice to have some help on. And then additionally, you get people into the station who are starting to get to know it. You get their families who probably are part of that. And then, you know, it starts to become more of a thing for people to stay after that program's complete. So
Richmond Rescue has done similar kinds of things.
yeah.
I hear that's worked out pretty well for them.
There's one other question, I don't know how to go about it. The guys were talking about that banner we made for recruitment. They wanted to know if they could put it on the town center lawn and how we could go ahead and get an approval for that.
Yep. Yeah.
How do we do that? But
Well,
yes.
it's not been warned, so we can put it on the next agenda.
Well, I mean,
Or
I'm just thinking signs, we probably already have too many signs in the front lawn. I think we could probably put it up. How big is it?
It's about as big as the table.
Okay, yeah, I think we could, why don't you and I just work on getting that up?
Okay.
And then it'll probably be okay.
The other place I thought is when the library puts their book sale up on the corner building.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who to get hold of that, but maybe That
Yeah.
would be another option.
And we should check with Keith to make sure we're within zoning on that. And I know they get I think the library sale is only up for like 2 weeks and there's I'm not super close to the zoning, but I think there's an allowance for a short-term sign versus long-term. But yeah, let's talk to Keith about it. And then if we need approval from the board, we can come back for that, but we may not as well. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for all your
you for
work.
all this.
This is awesome. It's good to see you at the parade too.
Yes.
What did you guys wind up doing with the car you ripped the doors off of?
The state police used it before we did, and they set a pipe bomb off in the car. to See what.
As one does, yeah.
Yeah, and then they took target practice at the windshield.
Yeah.
And then we took the doors off, but people wanted us to do more, but it was kind of a warm with all our bunker gear on. We got to come. So, but,
So who gets the car next and what do they do to it?
it's, Rod West took it back and
Yeah.
it's gonna be to the scrapyard.
Correct.
Well, it got a lot of use after
I
it
bet
got
you can
banged
still
down.
fix it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, that's what the Boy Scouts did. Move things up.
Okay.
Bottom.
But thank you very
I
much.
wasn't in the Boy Scouts, but that's what I did.
Thanks, Jerry.
Our next item on the agenda is a proposed amendment to the traffic ordinance. Specifically, a proposal to add a transitional zone at 2 locations on Cochran Road so that the speed does not go from 25 directly to 45. Because that winds up with people going along at 45 miles an hour, following the law, and then boom, all of a sudden they're in 25. Now there's signs, but there's still too many people coming into those 25 zones exceeding the speed. So the proposal would be to add a transitional zone at both ends of Cochran Road for 35 miles an hour. And the specific addresses.
Should we open the hearing first?
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
absolutely right. We should. I'm getting ahead of
I
myself.
know, we don't usually.
Open the public hearing to consider amendments to the traffic ordinance to reduce the speed limit on 2 sections of Cochran Road.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
Cool. Any discussion? Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, so, and thank you for catching me on that. I love talking about road, speed limits. So, in a nutshell, if I'm trying to share here.
Oh, you're sharing? Okay, I'm share, but go ahead, you got it.
This document that I have up, is the proposed change. It says no motor vehicle shall be operated at any time at a rate of speed greater than 34 miles an hour on. And then we have the specifics on Town Highway 3 Cochran Road from a point 1,500 feet easterly of Bridge Street to a point 800 feet easterly of the Cochran Ski Area driveway. So those would be the transitional zones for that end. And then at the other end, from a point 300 feet west of Dugway Road to a point 500 feet west of Dugway Road, specifically Greystone Drive. So that's the proposal. Members of the select board, comments, thoughts?
I guess my first comment is that we are reducing the speed limit on the straightest part of Cochran Road. I just don't know. Like, it would be great if everyone followed this. But I think that anecdotally, that's not how it works, and I think Matt can probably attest that the speed limit sign changing might not necessarily directly translate to speeds reducing. I don't know how that works, so I'm all for being optimistic, but I'm not in this situation.
It would with a significant amount of enforcement. However, it also, when you do place signs, you want to make it to a natural point where people are coming into a zone and realizing, okay, my speed has changed because there's some other piece of the environment that's changing as well. So if there's a more natural point that looks, this whole thing is now changing, I need to shorten it, I need to slow my speed up.
So like a straight section as you come into corners or as the trees shrink in, sign kind of visually triggers you to
just to start slowing down.
Right.
A hill, curve.
Right.
Okay.
Speed
Yeah.
bumps.
Yeah, many of us don't even really, in a lot of cases, we don't have to look at the speed limit signs because our minds from decades of driving know that if the road looks like this, the speed limit probably is that. And we'd be changing the speed limit on where there isn't any such thing.
And just a reminder, this was from a speed study
Mhm.
that CCRPC conducted, and they're the ones that recommended these zones. And I think, Adam, they would agree with you in a lot of respects. That's sort of why they do the speed studies, is because part of it is well, what do people drive here? Like, how fast do people feel comfortable driving based on current conditions? And they take a lot of that into consideration. But I think you also look at the amount of people that are walking and biking on the road and the transition area, like Jay said. If you want me to share a map, would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Just to refresh everybody's memory. Can you stop sharing?
I can stop sharing. I would love to.
Also some hands up.
Yep, I see the hands up.
So here's the areas in brown here. So the two ends are already 25 miles an hour. So these areas in brown would be the 35-mile-an-hour transition zone. It's a little easier to see visually than the description. It's somewhat technical. And then there's some additional signage for the 35-mile-an-hour zones and the ski area.
So this just remind people, the history of this is not just vehicular traffic and speed, it's all the other uses that have gotten our attention about this. And the intersection between moving vehicles and pedestrians or bicyclists in terms of fatality and serious morbidity reduces at lower speed.
Exponential.
Or whatever that's worth.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, Jean, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out a long time ago when you were talking about putting in the speed humps on Cochran Road, I had requested that if it would be most effective if you could move the speed limit warning signs further out so that a person who sees 25-mile-an-hour zone ahead takes your foot off of the gas, and you should be able to coast and be hitting 25 miles an hour when you hit the 25-mile-an-hour zone sign. And it looks like you guys did that on the Richmond side of the road, but on the Jonesville side of the road, your sign is so close, warning of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, that even going up that hill until I hit the sign, I'm still going above 25 miles an hour. So my point would be, take those signs, make sure that they're far enough back, warning of the 25-mile-an-hour zone, so that somebody can just take their foot off of the gas and coast to the 25-mile-an-hour zone and be doing 25 miles an hour, assuming they're traveling at 45, and put some flags on them or something to make them more visible, because sometimes people are not paying close attention to the signs. But if speeding is still an issue and 6 speed humps haven't slowed people down, putting up 2 35-mile-an-hour zones is going to do nothing. It's a waste of time and money. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay. And Judy. You're on mute. You're on mute, Judy.
I've been in touch with most of my neighbors down here at the Jonesville end today. Somehow I got elected. And everybody has something else to say. Everybody does agree that the speed humps have maybe done 35 to 40% helped of people are maybe slowing down, but there's a good 60% of people who are not. And putting up the side signs, putting up the speed humps, they haven't worked. In fact, they've caused more problems in a way, because people are still going 40 miles an hour past my house in both directions, from over the 2 bridges and from down by the speed hump by the Churchill's house. What's happening is, and I'm going to get into the trucks and the problem we're having with those. What's happening is people are, the speed humps are too far apart from each other, which doesn't really matter because a lot of people are ignoring them, and they're speeding up in between. People in pickup trucks and kids are either doing it on purpose, speeding in between on purpose, or playing Evel Knievel and going over them. The big trucks with the downshifting and the upshifting, they're screeching. Oh, there's a lot of other people that are screeching too, but they're screeching to a halt. They're making noise, getting back up to speed again. The Churchills and myself and others are being woken up at 3 a.m. Those of us that are trying to work from home with these trucks, making all the noise outside if we open our windows and doors, and it's problematic. Jeff Hughes suggested that a sign be put up for the trucks, something about what is,
Exhaust brakes.
say, something that rhymes with break, that starts with S.
Jake Brave.
S-
Yeah, we can't legally
Okay,
ban
which
them.
would, you know,
Yeah.
what signs don't matter, because if you take a look what's going on in Stowe between Smuggler's Notch, they don't bother to look at the signs. But the cars parked along the road. Today, I was coming from the post office over the Cochran Road Bridge, and the cars were parked way out past the white lines. And all along, all the way past my house and down, all up and down the West White Hill, which Jane Miller wrote to me about today, that it's getting out of hand. And I looked at all the windshields, and there's not any tickets being given out. And the cars are parked out far onto the road past the white line. I'm driving down the road. There's bicycles, there's people walking, going to the swimming holes, and there's cars coming the other direction, so I can't go over the orange line and the yellow line, and it's dangerous. And so between the trucks and all the noise with them stopping and going, and the people parked on the side of the road, and the speeders and the kids playing Evel Knievel over the speed humps, and I mean, it's out of control down here. It's just out of control. I mean, we're talking coming over around the Bombardier Field, over the Edmonds Bridge, past my house, going 40 miles an hour, either screeching to a halt in front of the Churchills or just going flying over their speed hump. It's just out of control. And I agree with Jean that putting another speed zone in isn't going to matter, because people who are ignoring the 25 are going to ignore the 35. I was going 44 miles an hour down the Cochran Road today to go to the store, and I got passed by two different cars. So where are the police? Diane and three other people down here today asked for more police presence down here, because that's the only thing that's going to stop these people. The signs, the speed limits, the speed humps, and it's not going to stop them. We need police presence. We need tickets being given out. You can use my driveway. They can use my driveway if they want. Everybody
Sure.
here would volunteer their driveway. But
Okay.
and the trucks are such a problem.
So Judy, as it happens, our sergeant from Matt Cohen is here. Matt, I know the answer to everything is send Matt down there and take Duke along, but could we do increased presence ticketing cards for traveling?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was one more suggestion from somebody that said what we need is a three-way stop sign here at by the Edmonds Bridge there, and over here. We need a three-way stop sign, West White Hill and coming down past the Quinn's house and going this way. If we had a three-way stop sign, that I can't remember which neighbor suggested that, but one of them did. And if we had a three-way stop sign, people would have to stop when they got down at this end, so they couldn't be speeding past the bridges.
Okay.
Thank you.
Matt, out of curiosity, can we have you or Armin or whoever's on duty patrol down there and ticket cars that are in the travel portion of the roadway?
Yeah, so we routinely are down there. Today we were down there 3 times on Dugway Road. On the 4th, when we were working, we were down Dugway and Cochran Road and had 2 car stops down there. I mean, we're down there, but there's only 2 of us and we can't be there 24/7.
2.5.
2.5.
Can I ask what you saw when you were down there?
For which?
So when you were
About today.
Today, so I went through there at 4:30 today, and I intentionally looked at every car that was parked along the road, and I didn't see one person over the line. So everybody was parked legally off of the road.
I did.
Correct. So we warned 1 car today. On the 4th, we ticketed 2 and warned 3. So.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna call Mary Huldex. Mary?
Thank you, Mary Hool. When I was on the select board, we did, and this is over 20 years ago, we did a traffic study on East Hill Road because the residents on East Hill Road had complained that 35 miles an hour was no longer safe. Well, we did that study with the Chittenden County Regional Planning because they have to conduct these things. And the study recorded, it was either 61 or 66 miles per hour as the highest speed on that area of East Hill Road. And it was determined by the study that it was safe enough to keep at 35 miles an hour. So it was kept that way. The proposal for a three-way stop sign was brought up years ago when the entrance to West White Hill was realigned. And that proposal was denied. Now, the speed bumps, and I get to say this because I get to travel on all 6 of them on Cochran Road. The speed bumps are very effective. And if you're a goddamn fool, yes, I said it, Mary Hoole, thank you, I'm saying it again, to run over those speed humps at greater than 10 or 15 miles an hour, you'll be spending a lot of time at the garage. I don't think that's true. I do not think people are running up to them and playing Evel Knievel. But that's just me. I've probably lived on Cochran Road a lot longer than anybody in the audience. 1959. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, Brendan, you have not spoken yet.
Yeah, I just want to advocate for using data to drive the decisions that we're making around where we're investing in interventions for any of the roads within Richmond. And so, if speed studies support the need for intervention, and we can compare that to towns around, we're not certainly distinctly unique in terms of towns in Vermont, and so would just advocate that we're being logical and data driven around the investments that we're making.
Okay, I'd like to call on the chair of the board of directors for the CCRPC. What would you say about there's been a speed study done, this is the advice, but you've also heard the comments about there not being a clear delineation that makes one expect a speed change. What would your opinion be?
I'd go to the traffic engineers because I think it has to do with what does the speed study say and then what's enforceable in terms of ticketing. Like you'd say it at 10 and give everybody a ticket and the traffic court throws them all out because you can't do that. So I think it's a formal question, like what is our authority to set things at a different speed limit than the speed studies say, and then related our ability to enforce that in tickets in a way that will be backed up at court when necessary.
Okay, Caitlin, your thoughts?
I feel like I'm still learning about this piece, so I'm going to listen a little bit more.
Okay, David, thoughts?
Inclined to go with the proposal to lower it to 35, but I'm still listening.
Adam?
I'm kind of indifferent, I guess. I would be very in favor of lowering to 35 if I thought that it would have a measurable impact, but anecdotally, I just am not confident that it'll have a huge impact without us tying up a massive portion of Matt's time doing enforcement.
Matt and Dukes. Okay.
I'll say this, Bart, again. One thing you may remember, David, I think you were and I were on the board when we lowered the speed limit on Route 2, which I think was 50 at the time.
Yeah, it was 50. We lowered it to 40 from the Park and Ride to the village.
And that had a certain amount of controversy because people are like, you're slowing me down. I have to go from 50 plus to 40 plus.
Somebody actually timed it and was upset that it took them 42 seconds longer to go from the interstate off ramp to the village.
And those are in these stretches of road. That's what we're actually talking in terms of impact on travel time. It's pretty modest. But it is tough. I'm sure there are still people who travel faster. I am struck because I'm on that section of Route 2 a lot, that people are generally driving about 40. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody going 50 or 60. I'm sure it happens, but
I still get passed on Kenyon Road when I go 35 and the 25, but people seem to be okay with 40 on 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to call on Susan Wells next.
Thank you.
I think there's nothing that's going to make a difference for everybody. But I do think that lowering the speed limit to 35 will slow some people down, and it will, they'll get used to it. They'll start thinking about it sooner, this 25-mile-an-hour zone. The speed humps aren't perfect. There are a lot of people who go pretty fast over them, and they come through that intersection pretty quickly. But I think that's the exception rather than the rule. I think that it has slowed a lot of people down. It does make a lot of noise. The trucks going over there with the big trailers, and it is pretty noisy, I'll have to say. But there's no one perfect solution. And I think the more things we try and the more things we put out there, the better. So I think lowering the speed limit to 35 will be effective, even though not everybody will follow it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Kara?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Jay?
Yeah, I just coughed as I was saying your name.
Oh, okay. I can speak on this subject?
Go ahead.
Okay. This goes to really Bard for a point of clarification. Did the traffic study actually say that the recommendation is to reduce the speed for that small section on both ends, but does the traffic study, like Mary was using an example, traffic studies show a safe speed to travel is 45 in those areas? So how does enforcement work? I want to make sure I'm understanding the message that's being given on the traffic study.
I would say I'm not the resident expert on traffic studies. I mean, the engineers who do the traffic study and then the attorneys or our officers who enforce it should be telling us that. I do think when they say, here's our recommendation, that it's founded in the combination of data and policy. And what is one of the questions?
Can we just have confirmation on that, Bard? That's what I'm just looking for, is the recommendation versus the actual. You can recommend whatever you want to try to help with, quote, speed in areas, but if the traffic study data, which Brendan was talking about, what does the data say? That's all I'm looking for, is the clear message on the data, not the recommendation, but the clear message of the data, because that goes to enforceability, right?
Yeah, so that's what they did. They and the full traffic study is available online. I can send it to you if you like. They go through a process of gathering the data, looking at speeds, looking at conditions, and after they do that, they provide this. It's many pages long. Then they provide, based on that data, they say, okay, here's what you should do to lower the speed limit, or sometimes they recommend no change. The enforceability is, because we have that traffic study, that then allows the speed limit to be lowered to 35 miles per hour in those areas, because it's based on a traffic study by a qualified professional traffic engineer. So that's the document that allows us to have this hearing right now to consider lowering the speed limit.
Versus us just saying, oh, let's do it.
Right, we can't, because if there was no traffic study on it and we lowered it to 35, then someone could get a ticket and say, well, there's no traffic study to back this change up. I can go 45 on this road because that is the speed limit that it should be. So this is the official document in the process, and we talked about it 2 select board meetings ago. The traffic engineer who was here who conducted the study as well.
Thank you. That's what I was just asking for, was clarification, because what Jay said and what Bard said weren't quite the same thing. So I just wanted to make sure. I appreciate that clarification. And I just want to point out that by additionally reducing the speed in another section, you're potentially moving that Jake brake issue or that braking issue to another area as well. So you're going to not just have the 25 brakes going on, but you're now going to have the 35 brakes going on from 45 to 35. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not saying I have an opinion either way, but I have heard, chatter around the trucking community that they're irritated by all these things that you keep doing, because this is a truck route, because it's been that way for over 30 years, because you didn't want the trucks with Jake brakes going through the village. So this became the truck route. So if that's to change and you want to put those trucks through the village instead, just watch what you're doing on Cochran Road because the truckers are still there and that's where you want them to be. So I'm just putting it out there that that's irritation and continuing to hinder their traffic on a truck route becomes an issue.
Okay, Sergeant.
Mirroring some of the comments earlier, when you do change the speed limits, it will take time for a new pattern to form. So as we go forward, like you saw on West Main, people started to drive 40 because the speed limit was 40. If you did set a speed limit that is completely off, randomly set a speed limit, it takes 5 years for that limit to then become law, even without a traffic study. So some of that time frame within that 5-year period is not enforceable, but then you can after 5 years, because they said people's behavior now change and used to that change that you've made. I understand why the other thing the traffic study pointed out for being 500 feet west of Greystone, because they don't want to have a change in speed limit so close to an intersection. I think based on the road, probably 300 feet the other side of Greystone, in my opinion, would make more sense of a reasonable spot where something's changed. I've now passed Greystone, I need to slow down. Like that could be a marker for somebody say, I'm passing Greystone, I gotta slow down. Versus being before Greystone. But that's just my semi-educated opinion.
Okay, Aaron.
Hey, I want to counter that opinion right now. So I used to live on Greystone, and what I was thinking of, you said that it seems odd to have the traffic slow down on a straightaway on the road, but right there where Greystone meets Cochran Road, that's a school bus stop. And traffic does move really fast right there at the end of Greystone. So and there's houses there, and Mary lives close to there, and it does seem logical. It's a neighborhood that it would logically, that's a good place for traffic to be slowing down right there. So thanks.
Okay, Mary.
Very cool. When the traffic study was conducted, did the traffic study get I want to find out if did they get the recommendation that we want you to change the speed limit to 35, or were they wide open? Say, you do a traffic study and give us your stuff back. Did they get a directive saying, we need to change the traffic, you need to back up, you need to back it all up with a study?
So I think we went to them saying there's been concerns about speed on Cochran Road and we want to know, should it be lowered? They came back, they do their study, they came back with this suggestion. There have been other traffic studies where they come back with some very small changes or no changes. So they don't really let that influence them. They'll look at it and they'll say, well, this is what the data says.
So did they understand that those speed bumps were put in an effort to, I just don't get it.
No, the speed bumps, I mean, some of the data they have, it shows that the speed bumps in Jonesville with the speed tubes, people were traveling about 25 miles an hour between those speed bumps. So they were well aware of the speed bumps.
Exactly, but when you go over the speed limit, not like Ms. Jerome says, people don't, there's no evil Knievel stuff. That's just ridiculous. And now people in the village are complaining that there's too much noise because of the speed bumps, that when trucks and trailers go over there, it makes them, well, you can't have it both ways.
Well, excuse me, but I don't like being called a liar. When I see these kids going over those speed bumps, playing Evel Knievel, and I stand there trying to get my mail and watch them, it happens. And Molly and the Churchills are being woken up at 3 a.m. from the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a problem with the parking. So I live down here for 37 years, and I'm not saying anything that's not true. And Mary, I love you and respect you, but I'm telling you the truth.
Let's keep it professional, folks. Okay, so board, I think no hands are up. Do people wish to make a motion or anything like that? Or do we want to take no action?
We have to close the hearing.
Oh, we have to close the hearing, but just in general, are you ready to move on? Close the hearing and decide something. Okay, so let's get a motion to close the hearing.
Jay, this is Caitlin. I move to close the public hearing to consider amendments to the traffic ordinance to reduce the speed limit on 2 sections of Cochran Road.
Jay, this is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Caitlin Filkins, seconded by David Sander to close the hearing regarding Cochran Road speeds. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, what would people like to do? Does anybody wish to make a motion? If you don't, we can move on. Okay, seeing no one making the motion, I will hereby declare that we just move on. Okay, our next item is consideration of covering domestic partners for health insurance. I'm just going to ask our town manager, Josh Arneson, who is in charge of personnel, to sum this up for us.
Yeah, so we have recently had a new employee start. When he arrived, he assumed that we cover domestic partners for health insurance. Our practice has been married partners and not domestic partners. Even though in our personnel guidelines, it just talks about a single, a two-person, or a family healthcare plan, it doesn't actually specify whether you have to be married or not. But I've wanted to bring it to the board for consideration because it's sort of been our practice. It's only been married partners. One of the concerns that I had, I think other people had, is like, well, what about, you know, fraud or anything like that? So we reached out to VLCT and Acroshore, which is a company that partners with VLCT, and we actually hire them as well for consultation on health insurance. They provided us with a sample policy that outlines some documentation you can get to prove that somebody's a domestic partner, as well as an affidavit that the person would sign to say this is my domestic partner, not just, you know, my roommate, which I think was the initial earlier concerns. So I think, you know, this employee would seriously consider leaving if they didn't get the domestic partner coverage. Just a couple of things to cover. The cost to go from a one-person to a two-person plan from the town's perspective is an additional about $13,000. When we budget for vacant positions, we always budget at two-person anyway, so this really wouldn't be that outside of the budget as we looked at it. Sorry, I had some other things here. As far as right now, there's 4 employees, including the person who we just hired, who are on single plans that this could apply to. 2 of them still live at home with their parents, and a 4th is not interested in putting their domestic partner on the health insurance policy. So I think for right now, it would be just the one. I do think from sort of a being equitable standpoint, it probably makes sense to include domestic partners as well. Not everybody chooses to get married, but they do have lifetime partners.
Jay, this is Bart. I move to include domestic partners employees for health insurance benefits.
Okay, this is David Austin.
You have a hand up too.
Okay, we do have a motion from Bart Hill, seconded by one of these 2 guys. Who wants it more?
I'll give it to Adam.
Okay, second by Adam Wood. However, we do have a hand up, so Mary Hull, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mary, I want to thank you for the clarification on that, because the concern I had was if it's somebody with a roommate, the clarification needs to be there, because I actually thought we already covered that. But having the insurance provider require documentation is reassuring to me. So thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Really?
I will also add that it's come to our attention that people have gone to other employers for this very reason. And I hate to see talented staff leaving.
Also to point out, I mean, so I changed jobs and I went through this on the employee side of it, and it was a real benefit. There was an affidavit and all that. The big difference is that this compensation would be considered taxable at the federal level, where, you know, to the employee, so they would pay on it as though it was income, not a health benefit. And so to put a roommate on it, you could do that if you were willing to commit fraud. It would cost that person, I mean, on $13,000, whatever their marginal tax rate is, it's like many thousands of dollars a year in additional taxes they're going to be paying. So it's not just a toss my roommate on and there's no drawback. So I know, I think that's another thing that points to people. I think it's very rare that people actually commit that fraud. It'd be a $4,000 to $5,000 commitment outlay that you would count on your roommate paying you back. So it's not free.
You know, and I'd just like to add some statistics, which I just a second looked up. The percentage of married adults dropped to adults who are married dropped to 53%. Cohabiting adults jumped from 3% to 7%. Between 2000 and 2010, unmarried couple households jumped 41%. This is simply the way the world is going. And it would be extremely foolish, in my opinion, to cleave to a no longer accurate view of how relationships are. I don't want to lose competent people either. Yeah, are there any other questions, or we have a hand up? Kara, go ahead.
Bard, can your motion also include that we have that, I don't know if it's mandated by VLCT, but we do the full paperwork like Adam is talking about here to prove with the affidavit, et cetera, that we don't just offer it, but it has to be proven. And that we also update our employee handbook to include this. Can that all, as part of this approval, happen?
I think if you say you move to approve the policy to include domestic partners, the policy as presented talks about the affidavit and identification, and that would be an addendum to the personnel guidelines. So I think that would cover everything that Kara's talking about.
Yeah.
And you'll define domestic partner in your handbook.
It is defined in the policy, which will be now an addendum to the handbook. Yes.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate
as
that
defined in
clarification.
the policy and handbook. Revised motion. Who's second?
Accept the revisions.
Okay, so the motion now states, I move to include domestic partners of employees for health insurance benefits and to,
As defined in the policy and employee handbook.
okay, as defined in the policy and employee handbook.
Can I
Any
just have
further
one more question, Jay, on that? Is,
Sure.
you know, when somebody gets married, they get divorced, and that's, you know, that might change the insurance. How is it confirmed? And maybe Adam, the benefit of the taxes or the tax payment might be the way people confirm that they're still a domestic partnership. I'm just saying, how does that possibly, if somebody moves out and their domestic partnership ends, how are you notified of that? I guess is my question. And
So-
did I miss it in the policy?
That's also covered in the policy, and there's a second affidavit that they would sign that says, I no longer have a domestic partner. So they would inform the town, similar to if you got divorced, you'd have to inform the town, because like Adam said, if you don't, you're
You're paying
committing.
tax. Yep.
You're
Thank
paying
you.
tax and you're committing fraud. If we find out 3 years later that we were covering someone that was no longer a domestic partner or a married partner, there would be legal implications.
Thank you for clarification. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, moved by Bart Hill, seconded by Adam Wood, to include domestic partners of employees for health insurance benefits and to so state in the policy and employee handbook. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Thank you, everybody. Gary, your hand is still up. Did you ask something?
No, sorry, it should automatically shut off, but it didn't. Sorry about that.
Okay, so the next item is a recap. We held a special meeting on Friday, June 27th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Bart Hill, Caitlin Filkins, and Jay Fur were present, which constituted a quorum. The special meeting was held in an effort to approve a new agreement prior to the current agreement for intermunicipal policing with Hinesburg. The policy that the agreement with Hinesburg that allowed for each police department to provide general police services and other patrol services was expiring at the end of June. We had worked out a new policy that essentially was a more reciprocal agreement instead of it being written to say we will be paying Hinesburg for patrol services. It now essentially says whichever town does the extra patrol gets made right by the other town. And so it basically may come out in the wash. It may be that they pay us some, it may be that we pay them some, but it's a new agreement that needed to be ratified by July 1, and that was what that meeting on the 27th basically did. Josh, do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, I think you've covered it.
Okay, so we want to put this on the agenda to give anybody who was not at that meeting, which was to say virtually everybody in town, a chance to ask any questions they might have about that agreement. So are there any questions from anybody on the call or here in the room? Mary Houle.
Here, well, I just want to say I appreciate the agreement. And as far as I can see, it's working out quite well. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands up, we now move to an update regarding the attempt to sell the Tesla. Josh, if you would, please.
Sure. So we did advertise the Tesla for sale. The select board set a minimum bid of $23,000, which is based on the current Blue Book value. We advertised on the website, Front Porch Forum, in 7 days, and directly to local used car dealers. We unfortunately did not receive any bids. No bids. Yeah, so we could lower the minimum bid and try again. We could also look into using one of the local auction houses and try to sell it through them. We haven't really done a lot of research into that. Matt has done his research, so I'll hand it over to Sergeant Cohen at this point, because I think he's got more info than I do. I know he does.
So I reached out to Thomas Hoshak's Auctions, which is pretty much our local auction house in Williston. For us to list the Tesla with them, it will cost us $55 every time we put it into the auction. And then there's also a service fee, which based on our pricing that we want will be a maximum of $300. So it'll be $355 to list the Tesla with them to have them sell it. They did say they would estimate somewhere in the $18,000 to $19,000 range would be what they might see it at an auction house, but they also are saying that that's at the wholesale price, like that is considered like a trade-in value for them. And to look at that point. Just out of some freedom I had, fun times, I put the VIN into Carvana to see what Carvana would offer us. And Carvana wants to give us 22,000 for it.
Okay.
So I'll give Carvana.
It's a,
Oh,
Card buying thing.
Oh,
you can see how often I sell.
they'll come and pick it up.
What did we advertise it for originally?
23.
Oh, yeah, let's lower it and sell it on Carvana.
Okay.
See if Carvana will take 22.5.
Matt found the right solution here.
Yeah,
I mean, it did go out to bid, so I think we could probably
I think we could do that now.
put $1,000 less. I think you could straight face that one.
Yep.
That would leave us with
Good.
3 vehicles.
Is that right? 3?
Three.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah. But on the 4th, I'll have an operation because Andy drove one.
But what?
Andy drove one on the 4th, so we have
Oh.
3 out there
Oh,
working.
great.
oh, look at that.
So you guys want to, that's a great solution.
I make a motion that we explore selling the vehicle to Carvana for 22, you said?
22, I pulled the VIN.
Okay. So we have a motion to sell it to explore selling it via Carvana.
Yeah, then I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion?
So I guess my one question would be, do they know it's a former police car? Like, is there any, what is the interior look like? Is it?
It's back together.
I
It's
didn't know at all, like, that it was.
no, there's very minimal cosmetic issues. There's nothing. It looks like it's a.
It's not like a 90s Crown Vic that's like.
No, it looks like a stock Tesla now.
Oh, you rolls and dashboard.
The one thing I might,
Like white monsters on the dashboard.
the one thing I might adjust is like, that's the offer that they put out there, right? Then they're gonna come and inspect it and take a look at the vehicle, and then I assume, and then they may adjust that.
Yeah,
Or is
it's
that-
usually not by much.
Okay.
If they want to go up,
So,
that's okay.
well, what I'm saying is that we passed a motion for 22, maybe it should be between.
Well, that's what we
this
said.
and this.
Explore.
Okay.
Do you want us to come back with their final offer for approval?
Okay.
I mean, what was it? What did Hershak say?
Hershak said somewhere between 18 and
19
19.
plus
I think if we
$300
get
plus
more than that,
$55
I
plus.
think if we get an offer for greater than $20,000.
Yes.
I would
Yep.
Sell it.
selling it.
Green light.
Yeah,
Yep.
Second.
And less than
so
that,
be it.
we.
We'll come back. and let you know.
Okay,
Reassess.
so I believe the motion is explore selling it via Carvana. And if we can get over $20,000, you don't need to come back to us.
Correct.
Okay, so originally made you did? Okay, we have the motion was made by David Sander, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, and they're both nodding at the slight amendment there.
Oh, you don't want to add, and to deposit the money into the police reserve so that it stays in the reserve and we can buy a future cruiser with it.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay. Motion is now, to explore selling the vehicle via Carvana, asking if we get at least $20,000, we don't need to have further attention paid to it, and we would be depositing the proceeds in the police reserve. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye.
Thank you.
Good job.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great work.
Oh, Duke is, I didn't even,
Yeah, he's sleeping over here.
didn't even see him sound asleep.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Two.
Okay, our next item on the agenda. The Highway Department's zero-turn mower was sold this past spring for $3,111. At the time, the Select Board did not indicate where the funds were to be placed. This is a chance for the select board to direct those funds to be deposited at the Highway Reserve Fund.
Move to deposit $3,111 from the sale of the zero-turn mower into the Highway Reserve Fund.
This is David, I'll second.
We have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to deposit $3,111 from the sale of zero-turn mower into the Highway Reserve Fund. Kara.
I ask that you reconsider the motion. We're no longer going to do mowing, so we don't need to put it in the Highway Reserve Fund. There are plenty of monies that are in the Highway Reserve Fund, and you can't spend those on any other area of town. And we also put reserves set aside for the Highway Department. I ask that you reconsider and put this money, and that's why I bid the amount I did and bought this. Was that you potentially would use it where you're out of funds, like doing some work on the Browns Court Park. Because you've used the Browns Court Park funds, the ARPA funds for FEMA. So you're out of money for that project up there, like Denise said earlier. I think this should go toward helping finish that project, and it doesn't need to go into a reserve and can be used right now. I think we have reserve funds for highway, and you're not going to buy another mower, and that's what this was being sold, was a mower. Thank you.
I do think it makes sense to not put money in a reserve that's restricted if we can avoid it and there's not a clear reason to do it. Yeah, I think Kara has a good point that we're taking money from a mower and we're not going to do mowing anymore.
So is the direction to put this into the Highway Reserve Fund just because it was a highway department asset?
Yeah, I was thinking you would roll it over, put it towards the purchase of the next truck or something like that, like similar to the police, like example, the Tesla goes in. If you want to do what Kara's thought, I would say amend the motion to put it into the Special Projects Reserve Fund, which is where the money kind of rolled into from ARPA. And then we borrowed it to pay back the flood expenses, and it will be paid back once we get paid back from FEMA, but it always takes at least a year to start seeing money from that. But there is hundreds of thousands of dollars, I don't have the exact figure, that's going to come back and go into that. But this might help with some of the short-term needs. It's up to you guys.
I don't have a strong opinion either way. I'd be open to
liquidity.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the motion is currently to put it in the Highway Department Fund if you want to amend that. But that's the motion as it currently stands.
I guess I made the motion, so I gotta amend it. I would amend the motion to I move to deposit $3,111 from the sale of the zero-turn mower into the Special Projects Reserve Fund.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is now to deposit $3,111 in the Special Projects Reserve Fund. The motion was made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Keelan, aye.
David, aye.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay, 3 more items before we go into our personnel review. The next item is consideration of setting the fiscal year 26 tax rate. There is a form which is about to be shared on the screen by Town Manager Josh Hardison. This is unfortunately an increase, but we worked very hard to not have a double-digit increase in our budget despite all the floods. And so the spreadsheet that we're seeing, could you close the chat? Reflects that the amount of money needed to fund the budget is 0.5447 cents per $100 of value. So that is an increase from the prior year. On the prior year, it was 0.4969. This is a tax level change of 0.0478. Questions from the board or members of the audience?
What's the effective percentage increase?
That
Yeah, that's about what I thought.
It's more than that. 0.0478 is a change. It's 9.6%. 0.0478 is 9.6% of 0.4969. And as you recall, I think we had a lower number when we looked at the budget. but that did not include the special appropriations as well as the Conservation Reserve Fund. So the general number here includes what we need to raise to fund the general fund, including the appropriations,
Right.
but less any revenue that we're accounting for in FY 26. Same with highway, and then we have the Conservation Reserve Fund in. So the total that we need to raise from taxes is $4.3 million. And again, this does not include school.
Right.
Okay.
So Jay, this is David. I move to set the fiscal year tax rate at 0.5447.
Do we have a second?
Bart, I'll second that.
Okay, Kara, please go ahead.
What's the actual dollar amount, Josh, of what that percentage increase is? If they tried to keep the tax rate at the 0.4969 and not have any tax increase, what's the actual dollar difference? If they could use like unallocated funds to hold the tax rate or something like that. I'm just curious to know what the dollar amount is.
I don't know what the dollar amount is, and right now we really don't have any unassigned funds because we've used it all on flooding. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think we should try to have less flooding in the future.
Less flooding would be helpful.
Yeah.
Any follow-up, Kara?
And how are we with, I'm just curious. I just was trying to figure out some way so that you could sell it as no tax increase. You know that. I'm not looking to be a jerk about this, but it goes a long way when you can say you didn't increase taxes. So I'm just trying to think around it for you all, not being difficult. And like our interest on our CDs that we're earning now and all of that kind of stuff, we've estimated those.
Yeah,
Well,
that's all.
I mean,
That's
we're
all. That's all.
underestimated, overestimated. How are we doing with that?
That's all into the FY 26 budget, which was talked about during the budget season and approved by the voters. We did our best estimates on future revenues from those sources, which again are going down because of our, interest rates. I think. Well,
yeah.
Regardless of interest rates, we don't have the money. We were doing well there for a while until we had $2 million in flood expenses.
But Kara, the actual spending went down, even though the taxes went up.
Right, that is true too.
Right. So I was just saying about I was just referring to the 2025 income on that, Josh, not the projection of 2026. So thank you.
Yep. Okay.
And last year was artificially low because we took unanticipated savings from the year before and rolled it into last year.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we had the use of unassigned funds in FY 25 was quite high and very low by comparison in FY 26.
Yeah.
Which is why, like you said, the actual spending went down in 26, but the tax rate went up because we have less to offset what we have to raise. What we have to raise from taxpayers.
Can I just ask one last question? How much do we actually have in CDs right now? How many million?
I don't have that in front of me, but if I think they might have all matured at this point because I think they were maturing last fall, shortly after the flood, and we didn't reinvest any of them because we needed the money at that point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Being no further discussion, the motion on the floor. Again, help me here. David, did you make the motion? And it was seconded by Caitlin or by Bard? Bard, seconded by Bard Hill, is to set the tax rate for fiscal year 26 at 0.5447. Please state your name and your vote.
Bard, aye.
Caitlin, aye.
David, aye.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is to review the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics, as many people know, has received increased attention from the state. They have formed an ethics commission, and towns across Vermont have a mandate to have ethics policies, which can be more stringent than the state model policy, but cannot be less stringent. And we have voted to require all town committee members and elected officials to comply with the Code of Ethics. There are two steps that need to be done. One, you have to read and agree to abide by the Code of Ethics. Two, you have to take the state ethics training, which is available via website. Those of us who've done it know it doesn't take very long, and they tell you if you got the answer wrong, so you can be able to fix it. But
is that ethical?
I don't know. But what they're trying to do with this ethics policy is get people to take a more serious look at potential conflicts of interest and help people understand what is a conflict of interest. As I've said in the past, we have occasionally had the, oh, we're a small town, we don't need to do things all citified. Well, unfortunately, we do, because anybody who's lived here for any amount of time knows that there have been many abuses at the municipal level by people who said, oh, we're just all friends here, we don't need to follow that. And so the people listening to this meeting now live or who might be looking at it later, the town ethics policy is in the packet. And just for grins, can we bring it up here on the screen? I know it's not like 5 inches long, but
Sure, we can do that.
okay. So this is an 11-page document. I don't propose to read the entire thing. I want people listening to know that there is such a thing. And I'd like to call particular attention to definition number 5. Conflict of interest means a direct or indirect interest of the municipal officer, or such an interest known to the officer, of a member of the officer's immediate family or household, or of a business associate in the outcome of a particular matter pending before the officer or the officer's public body, or that is in conflict with the proper discharge of the officer's duties. Conflict of interest, this is important, does not include any interest in the matter that is not greater than that of other individuals generally affected by the outcome of the matter. That said, if you are not sure, it's best to err on the side of thinking you've got a conflict of interest. So, for example, Caitlin, your action to recuse yourself during the discussion of Southview, one can make the case that your interest is not greater than that of other individuals generally affected, but nonetheless, I applaud what you did, because it's easier to just leave no doubt.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments on the town ethics policy? Has everybody signed the policy and taken the training?
I have to check. I don't know if I've
Yeah,
taken.
I did, but no.
Oh,
Well, we've been encouraged to, when we take the training and we finish it, it gives us a certificate and a certification that you finished it to send to Duncan.
Right.
okay.
Oh,
And so, Duncan probably has a list of everybody.
He should know.
Definitely does. Yeah, he's keeping track.
And I'm sure that you guys are reminding departments that, may have, or committees that may have not everybody signing it.
Yep, he's got a pretty good reminder system going on and sending out reminders to committees and specific people. So really trying to get as much compliance as we possibly can.
And sort of to follow up on what Jay said, this isn't something that we have to do because we have to do it. This is something that should be done and is good practice.
Right?
You have a question?
Yes, we do. Any other comment from the board? Okay, Kara, please go ahead.
Does this have to be done annually, Jay? I just want to make that known for everybody listening to this. Is this an annual thing for every committee member and board member? Or can this be done until such time you're no longer serving? I mean, it's not like you're changing ethics policies.
So it's an annual review and sign the acknowledgement form and an annual review in the committee. It is a 3-year renewal of the video. So you only have to watch a training every 3 years, but an annual read through and sign off an acknowledgement form.
Thank you.
Okay. So there's
Meeting,
no
can I call you back?
motion to be made on that, but, the townspeople need to know that we take this seriously.
That's
Okay, moving on to, the last agenda item before purchase orders and warrants. We have, the Big Spruce and the Lucky Spot applying for liquor licenses. The Big Spruce has applied for a first-class license, which allows beer and wine to be sold on site. The restaurant was formerly operated by James Berman and will now be operated by Chef Stable by Christian Cruz. The Lucky Spot has applied for a second-class license, which is beer and wine off-prem. Now, I noticed we don't list a third-class license for the Big Spruce, but I believe the reason for that is that their existing license is not up for renewal yet. Is that correct?
Let's see. Serve spirits on site, Big Spruce, first class liquor license.
Unless it's not their plan to sell spirits, but
Let me just double check what they submitted. I think all that they submitted for was a first class. I But let me,
Maybe they're not planning on doing this.
well, let me double check just to make sure that I didn't overlook something. The Big Spruce liquor license, it's a first class license. Yep, just first class. Big Spruce, education details, yep, just the first class is all they gave us paperwork for.
Okay, then that's what we should consider. Is there any discussion of these?
Move to approve first class liquor license for the Big Spruce.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to approve a first class liquor license for the Big Spruce. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye.
Jay, this is David. I move to approve a second class liquor license for the Lucky Spot.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to approve a second class liquor license for the Lucky Spot. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Jay, aye. Okay, next we have warrants, purchase orders, and minutes. And we have the minutes of, we have two sets of minutes to review. The minutes from the regular meeting on the 16th and the minutes from the extremely detailed and lengthy special meeting on the 27th.
This is Adam. I move to approve the minutes of the 6/16/25 meeting.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to approve the minutes of June 16th as presented. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, the next should only be voted on by the people present, I guess. We have the minutes from June 27th.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 27th.
It's Caitlin, I'll second.
We have a motion from Bart Hill, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to approve the minutes from the special meeting on the 27th. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, abstain.
Adam, abstain.
Jay, aye. Next, we move on to purchase orders. We have, I believe, three, unless any crept in.
Nope, just the three.
The first purchase order is purchase order 4927 to Innovative Surface Solutions for Chloride and the amount of $19,473.98.
Jay, this is David, so moved.
Adam, second.
Okay, we have a motion by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood to approve purchase order 4927. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Next is purchase order 5195 for Simple Route for fiscal year 26 IT services in the amount of $19,404.
Jay, this is David, so moved.
Caitlin, second.
Second.
Okay, motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood to approve purchase order 5195 to Simple Route. Please state your name and your vote.
Art, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Last, purchase order 5266 to Catamount North site work for the Tilden Avenue Stormwater Project in the amount of $69,546.
Jay, this is David, so moved.
This is Adam, second. I got a question. Is this work done already?
Yeah, you also approved the contract several months ago.
Cool.
I should have included the purchase order then,
That's fine.
but
We have a contract that's more important than the deal anyway.
we did have a contract that was approved, and I think this is,
You know exactly where I'm going with.
yeah, exactly. No, I thought about that when you gave it to me. I was like, oh, we should have done the PO a while ago. This is, I think, like $1,000 over the contract because there were some unforeseen circumstances that we found. There was like a old sewer pipe that we had to, that we didn't.
Minimal considering what we were digging into it. But
Yeah, but they also saved money because there was a certain amount. I think there was something that we included that they actually didn't have to do. So the two things sort of wash themselves out, but it's slightly above. And they did all feedback from Tyler, the engineer, and Pete, the road foreman, is that they did a great job, as well as the residents who live there. So
Yeah.
everybody's very happy.
I don't know how the neighbors feel about it.
Everybody was very
I
happy
don't know if
with
the
it.
neighbor who did the work, how did he feel about the work being done?
Well, it is interesting that, yeah, we had a low bid from a local contractor, which is really, I think it's great to see. And he did a really good job, and neighbors were happy.
Everyone's happy with that. Pete was.
Pete's happy, Tyler, the engineer's happy, the residents whose property was mostly constructed on are very happy. So, no, I think
And
overall,
even the
big
ghost
win.
who lives in their basement was happy.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard from the ghost, but I've
You do
heard
know that
good.
they say their house is.
I have heard
No
that.
news is good news.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I've heard
That's
that.
great though. I mean, that was that bid was significantly lower than the other ones and
Yeah.
as a younger contractors, there's always. That's kind of a nerve-wracking situation. So the fact that it all turned out great is awesome to have. Yeah. Resource.
Okay, I apologize. Did we get a motion on that? Yeah,
We did.
who made it?
I didn't write it down.
Did you make it? And I seconded it?
Yes.
Okay, motion made by David Center, seconded by Adam Wood for purchase order 5266 for Catamount North site work for the Tilden Avenue Stormwater Project. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, that finishes the bulk of the agenda. We should discuss items for next agenda, and then we have a proposed executive session. So we would like to hear back on the prospect of scheduling a site visit and community meeting on the subject of the 3-acre rule affected area of Southview.
Yep.
Other ideas, folks?
At the beginning, we talked about the pickleball courts. There was an item there that we needed.
Well, pickleball grant, yeah, I have that written down. So it's the grant and conservation fund request.
Just an update on the police cruiser sale.
The Tesla, yeah.
Updating, yeah,
Police cruiser.
okay.
Anything else? Okay, well, you know how to find Josh and myself.
Excuse me, Jay.
Go
Excuse
right
me,
ahead.
the town center building update.
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
RFPs.
And when you do the 3 parks for their grant, can you also have an update on that project as well? So it's not just their grant, but an update on their project status? Would that, are you gonna let them know that they have $3,111 available so they can keep going?
Yeah, we can do that, but I think that their plan is to try to, the next money they have to spend is for the trees, and they have a plan for conservation money. But we'll let them know they have 311.
Thank you. But I think they had some picnic tables proposed. That's all I'm saying. And I know that would fit in that money.
Sure.
okay. So the final item of the agenda is a proposed executive session to consider a personnel matter.
Can I assume you're not gonna invite me into that session? Okay,
I
so
wasn't thinking so.
I'm gonna leave. I would just ask if you guys would sign these before you go into the session. And then just turn off the lights and close the doors and lock behind you on your way out. And I'll unplug the fans so they're not running all night.
Okay.
I know it's asking a lot,
Remember, Josh.
but if you don't need me, just assume
Oh, you say we don't need you.
Let's just
well,
quickly,
for this session,
Josh is still here.
for this session. So that is, but yeah, I just to get those back, tidy it up and then, yeah, just shut down the computer too, Jay, and it'll stop recording at that point.
See the Newfoundland that came to my yard this
Oh
morning?
my God. I saw a bear cub run across the road the other day. My way.
And your wife went out and yelled at it and it ran away. Right?
You should have a video of that. Oh, Jesus.
It reminds me of the time that Governor Shumlin had a bear in his backyard raiding bird feeders and ran out to chase it away and made the mistake during a press conference where that topic came up.
Yeah.
Of admitting that he didn't wear pajamas or anything else to do it. Everybody suddenly had to visualize Peter Shumlin naked chasing bears in it.
All the things that were.
I'm not judging, it's just not a mental image I'm really needed, but
I was never.
Okay.
I mean, I think I take Shumlin.
One more request. Can you write down who made the motion to leave executive session, who seconded that? And then, yeah, just,
Yeah.
you know how to hit end on this thing, right?
I
Obviously.
think I can work that out.
I think you know how to do this.
Eric,
Thanks.
dumped over our our gas grill. It was sort of
Oh my
set up a
God.
little bit and it just tipped it over. Like, it was fairly loud in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. We got bears last year a lot and they would drag the trash up the hill, but we haven't had any yet this year.
He came back all day, every couple hours. I'd chase him away and he'd come back.
They go in cycles,
Yeah.
in like big area cycles, so they'll come back
Yeah.
every couple days, every like.
It was funny watching my wife screaming at him.
The first time we had a bear, I ran out to the thing, get some photos, just without any conscious thought whatsoever. And my wife's like, "What are you doing?" And the poor bear was like, "What are you doing?" Funny.
This isn't how this is supposed to work.
And then a few months ago, I was backing my car out of the garage, and I look at my rearview mirror, and there's a mama bear into Cub Bears, throwing like hell down my driveway to get away from me. I'm like, damn, that would have been such a great photo.
So Jay, when you ran out, I was see what the hell are you doing? Were you wearing pants or no pants?
I was wearing pants.
I was on a work trip and a fire alarm went off and it was like 5:30 in the morning and it was in a hotel. The fire alarm went off and so I swiftly exited the building as one is supposed to do. I just threw my shoes on and I was in my pajamas. I had full pajamas on and I walk out of the building and everyone, like, no one's outside no one's in the fire exit. So I was like, maybe this is just me. Like, I didn't see anyone else exiting. Yeah, so then I walk up to the front of the building and people had just like gone down the elevator and like gone into the lobby, were fully dressed, drinking coffee. All my coworkers, I was like, hi, I'm in my pajamas and a jacket over my pajamas.
You'd be alive.
Thank you. I thought I did the right thing. I had shoes
Good.
on. I had pants and a long shirt.
Everybody has signed everything now?
Yes.
That's this way. Would select here to make a motion?
To find the premature knowledge about an employee review would cause the town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage.
Caitlin, I'll second.
We have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to find the premature knowledge about employee review would cause town or person to suffer a substantial disadvantage. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye.
I move that we enter into executive session to discuss an employee review under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3.
Caitlin, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to enter into executive session to discuss an employee review under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A3. Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye. Okay, I'm taking my laptop up there, but I'm leaving the Zoom. And we do have to come out and formally adjourn. Josh has asked us to make note of who made the motion to leave executive session. Okay, so for those people watching on the Zoom or watching this recording later, the select board has returned from executive session to discuss drafting a employee performance review. And now all that really remains is to adjourn, barring any comment from any member of the board on any topic. Does anyone wish to make a motion to adjourn?
Bart, move to adjourn.
Adam, second.
We have a motion from Bart Hill, seconded by Adam Wood to adjourn. Please state your name and your vote.
Bart, aye.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, aye.
And Jay, aye. We are adjourned. Have a good evening. Go cool off.
Thank you much.